There's no time.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, you guys. It's Wednesday, and it's the main show. Thank you very much, Jeffy Art. Already, like, right out the gate.
Damn, sending us down flashbulbs immediately.
Flashbulb
we
right
like
away.
that money. That's fucking funny.
I like money.
Yeah, we like money. That's from Idiocracy, if you guys ever seen that. You like money? Oh, I like money, too.
I kind of feel like everybody knows that. That's become a meme.
And then later on, he's like, man, I can't believe you like money. It's like he becomes his best friend.
Well, you know.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm trying to wake up, you guys.
Yeah.
Pookie
I just poured the drinks.
woke me up at 5:30 this morning, doing her buffalo herding.
Yeah. She can run across the floor. It sounds like a fucking herd of buffaloes.
For such a tiny cat, she is really, really very noisy.
Run through the whole fucking house.
So 5:30, I'm like woke up by.
Yeah.
She's like running back and forth like in a hall. And Tom said she goes in the living room up here on the second floor and like runs and jumps up on the chair and then jumps up on this little wall ledge.
We got a little partition between two.
Between the hall and like the living room.
The living room, yeah.
And then she jumps off of that and then like runs down the stairs and then back up the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole house is a roller coaster. She's running through the whole thing like that. And she's happy, and then she'll run up, you know, if I'm sleeping there, she'll run up and look at you. Do you see what I did?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you ran through the whole house. Big deal. Okay. I'll time you next time.
Yeah, and then sometimes when she's doing it, you can hear her go. Brrr.
Yeah, she's yelling, making trills and shit.
It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, she's the weirdest. She's the weirdest cat ever. Weirdest cat ever. But yeah, she woke me up at 5:30, so I'm super sleepy.
So what's today's show going to be about?
We're talking about the acid bath murderer.
Yep.
John George Haigh.
Yeah.
This guy, I've been wanting to do a show about this motherfucker since I read a book about this guy when I was a kid, when I was probably too young to be reading a book about this motherfucker. And something about it stuck with me. I guess it's the whole thing about dissolving bodies in sulfuric acid. And I was just like horrified, but also intrigued. So I think it was, I can't remember if it was like a whole book about him or it might have been, I remember it being a paperback or it might have been like several like true crimes like in one book. But for whatever reason, that one like really stuck with me. So I've been wanting to like do a show about this.
Yeah, there were several kind of acid bath guys. Dahmer was an acid bath guy. But I think for different reasons. He was trying to get bones. But, yeah. Which exact one is this? Is a British acid bath guy?
Yeah, this is a British. There was a French one too, which I'll mention him a little bit because this guy was inspired by the French guy. But this guy is probably I think this guy's the most famous one because that was kind of like his whole thing was like an acid bath thing. And he's also one of those motherfuckers. You know, like we've talked about this a lot on some of the true crime shows where it's just kind of like, you know, that kind of motherfucker that it's like it's bad enough that he's a serial killer, but he's like really arrogant and thinks he's like smarter than everybody and that he's going to get away with it.
Yeah.
This is one of those motherfuckers. Yeah. Which, yeah. Maybe that's...
nitwit ones.
What... Yeah, like one of those ones that think they're like super clever and they're going to like outwit everybody and everybody's like, you're kind of stupid actually. Yeah. Like you do like really stupid shit.
They had a damn YouTube videos made by one of these, I don't remember what it was, one of these little outfits, and they took like 6 college students and had them all tell the camera how smart they were and what their IQ would be, and then they had them rank all the other people to see how accurate they were. Yeah, and the girl at the bottom thought she was the smartest. And she thought that the dude that was the smartest one, she thought that he was the dumbest. It's just...
Well, we talked about this before. Yeah. Probably we should do a whole show about Dunning-Kruger syndrome because the thing about it is that sometimes, like, the dumber you are, the smarter you think you are because you don't know how much you don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't realize like how much there is that you don't know. Whereas actual smart people are like, holy shit, like, yeah, maybe I'm kind of smart, but there's like fuck tons of stuff I don't know. So they're kind of more humble about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a weird...
Yeah, and then the people that made the video showed their actual IQ test scores. Intelligent quotient scores, I guess is what it's called. Isn't that what Q stands for?
Yeah.
Anyway. And the girl was a midwit. Not dumb. She was just like 110
like
IQ.
average.
110. A little bit above average.
That is a little bit.
And they noticed that right about, 100 is average, but they noticed that if you're a little bit above average, like mid-wit is what they called it, you tend to think you're a lot smarter than you are. And then they tend to think that people that are smarter than them must be dumber than them because they can't understand what they're talking about.
Well, yeah, that's another thing.
You're right, yeah. Right, so... Got to be careful for midwits. Midwits are fucking more damaging than people that are below IQ. Because a lot of people who are below IQ just have practical knowledge. They just, well, I've seen this work. This will work. They're not worried about status too much, and they're just kind of more into practical shit that works. You know what they saw work and what people taught them to do. They just do that, and if that works, then that's what they stick with. Which they tend to keep themselves out of trouble. They keep you out of trouble. Because they won't make snap judgments on you. They're not really worried about you. They're worried about getting paycheck and getting food. You know, which more admirable if you ask me. You know, than a midwit.
Yeah, this guy I feel like is kind of like that.
Yeah, midwit, they're overreaching, trying to be more than what they are.
Yeah, Xanadu just said, I was recently doing research on this guy. He was kind of unique, but also a moron.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was, like I said, he was kind of a moron that thought he was like super smart, which is funny, but it's not funny because like a bunch of people got killed, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Zach said, you guys have got me started on a De Palma binge. Just finished Raising Cain this afternoon. You know, I just rewatched Raising Cain probably like a year ago, and yeah, that was like way more what's the word I'm looking for, a lot more like overwrought than I remembered.
Yeah,
I can't decide if I really like it or if it's really bad.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, John Lithgow is in it. John Lithgow works with Brian De Palma a lot, actually, because he was also in Blowout, now that I mentioned it. Allison Wonderland says, hi, Tom and Jenny. I'm a longtime viewer, but this is my first time on the live chat.
Oh, my God.
Well, hey, welcome, a live chat virgin.
Where you live?
Love you too, Jenny. That wig is everything. Thank you.
What'd she say?
She said that wig is everything.
Oh, okay.
This is my very favorite wig. I have two of these.
First live stream, you must live on the other side of the damn planet. Must be from Australia or something.
Maybe.
They're usually...
That's what I was really like,
We wanted to fucking...
For a second, I was confused because Rebecca came on and she was like, it's freezing cold. And I was like, freezing cold? And I was like, oh yeah, she lives in Australia. Their seasons are opposite. I'm like, that must be so fucking weird. Like, obviously it's not weird for Australians because they grew up like that.
It's the same in Brazil.
But yeah, like for me, I'm just kind of like... I don't know. It's not that weird because I grew up in Florida and like it's pretty much always hot here at Christmas. So I get that, but... I don't know. It would be weird being like cold in the summer.
It's not hot in Christmas. It's just not cold.
It's just not cold.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
70s.
I used to
60s.
See. Yeah,
it can get to 40s, 50s, the 40s.
Yeah,
50s.
Sometimes, but not usually around Christmas time. Usually, like it'll be January. Like,
and once this is about 10 years ago, it snowed here for Christmas. That was a trip.
I don't think it was Christmas.
It was 2008. It was Christmas time. All the Christmas lights were out. I remember looking at them.
Yeah, but I think it was January. Like every time I've heard of it snowing,
it was before Christmas had happened.
It's usually in January.
It was before,
or sometimes February.
It was 2008. I remember the year, 2008 that happened.
Yeah, it snows every now and then, like in the middle part, like in Ocala and stuff.
Yeah, that's where it was.
Yeah, see, not usually
it was in Eustis, Ocala area.
Yeah. Okay. So I must have still been I was still in Daytona. It didn't snow over there. It doesn't snow much over there because of the, it's right on the ocean.
Longwood? They had a whole light display out there. We drove through it with the girl I was dating at the time. And it was fucking, that was when I was dating a girl named Ashley. You never met Ashley. Ashley Love. I got pictures of her. I'll show you. She wasn't really part of the scene. And me and Ashley went down through there and toured the light display, the Christmas light display, and there was snow everywhere. And she's from here, she had never seen snow.
Yeah, I didn't see snow until I was in my 20s.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what she was in. She was 25, maybe. Like 25, 26. But she had never seen snow. Which for a Florida girl is not
That's not weird.
unusual.
That's not weird. Like I said, I never saw snow until I went to the UK in 1995 or something.
Yeah.
And it snowed. Like, I went there in January. Camp Guy said, I watched a 45-minute documentary on this dude last night. He's a real weirdo, but he looks so totally regular. Yeah, he just looks like, which is maybe how he got away with shit. He's one of those guys, he's a serial killer in the sense that, you know, he killed a lot of people. 6 that they know of, but they suspect it's probably more. But because of the motives, it's not, like, it didn't seem like a sexual motive. Now, I will say that he tried later on to say that he did some weird shit, like drank blood and everything like that, but I'm not sure if I buy that because I think he had an ulterior motive. He was kind of more one of those goal-oriented motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Goal-directed violence.
Yeah. So I think it was more that. I don't think he was, like, getting off on it so much as just, this is an obstacle that I need to move aside.
Some would say H.H. Holmes was like that, but I kind of doubt it. I think
this is a kind of an H.H. Holmes, and yeah, Xana just said the same thing. This guy was H.H. Holmes with none of the intelligence. Yeah, pretty much. It's a similar kind of dude. He's like, he starts out like doing like fraud, you know, and then is like, well, I could do fraud easier if like all these people stopped like calling the cops on me, so I guess I'll kill him.
I think H.H. Holmes, though, he was goal-directed, but I think there was a sexual element to a lot of what he was doing, too. It's just that I think, based on H.H. Holmes, what was written about him, I have a feeling that he was into little boys. But he was killing women for their skeletons and for money, and they were easier targets. Remember, he always had this thing where there was always little children around him, and he got busted for hanging out with that boy. Then they accused him of having some kind of inappropriate relationship with this boy. He was what, 12?
I don't know.
12, I think so. Maybe 11. I think that's what he was really after. So for all we know, H.H. Holmes was trying to build his empire to impress little boys one day, maybe.
Meanwhile, little boys are like, there's no Legos or dinosaurs involved in this. I don't care.
Yeah.
Hugo said, Masters of Horror has one episode, Family. Oh, I remember that one. With George Wendt from Cheers. And the acid bath scene is pretty good. That was actually one of my favorite episodes of Masters of Horror. I think because it reminded me of, and this is going way obscure, but there was a story by Miriam Allen DeFord, I think, from the 40s, like a short story, that was kind of about this guy that owned a funeral home. And he was real lonely, so when he found like a particularly choice body that came through his thing, he would like fix it all up and put it down in his, in his sitting room, and he would pose them, and then he would talk to them like they were his real family and stuff.
Wait a minute, hold on, who was this?
It was a story.
Okay. It wasn't a real person then?
No.
Oh, okay. I missed part of it. I was thinking it just came up and there's, you know.
Tom doesn't listen to anything I say.
No, I listened to it, but... All right.
But it's like,
Whatever.
I'm just saying, like, you missed the whole first part of that.
I missed the setup.
Yeah, because he was talking about Masters of Horror, Masters of Horror episode, and I said...
Oh, that's right, that's fiction.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, I didn't know...
See, I didn't know that was, you know what I mean? I'd forgotten that that's a fictional program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, you liked some of the episodes of that. You just rewatched it, I thought, like, not too long ago.
Yeah.
But, that was, like, the whole thing. I thought that maybe that episode of Masters of Horror was maybe loosely based on that short story because it was similar. It wasn't exactly the same, but it did remind me of that. But that story, I first read it in one of those Alfred Hitchcock... Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I think it was Stories That Scared Even Me or something like that. I think it was in there. Alice in Wonderland said, "Hi, I'm from Queens, New York. Thanks for saying hi." Well, hey, it's very, very nice that you were able to come here.
I'll forgive you.
What's wrong with Queens?
I'm just messing with you. They were cooler than people from Boston. Every time I went to New York, the people in fucking New York were tougher. I liked them. Tougher. The Boston people were a bunch of massholes, most of them. But it's a class system, you know. The ones that were actually from there, they were a lot better. The Boston people up in the Northeast. I had fun there. Good winters.
Xanadu said, I grew up in Minnesota. We had a blizzard on Halloween once. It didn't
Yeah.
stop a single kid from trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
See, that blew my mind when I was a kid because it never, ever, ever, ever gets cold in Florida before December, and usually not even then. So Halloween is always hot. And if you want to, like, wear in a really elaborate costume, I remember, like, being a kid and, like, we'd go out for a little while trick-or-treating, and then we'd have to come home and, like, change into another costume because that one was, like, all sweaty. And, like, we were all uncomfortable. So it's like, I used to see movies sometimes where, like, that were set up north or something, and, like, they'd go out trick-or-treating, it was all cold, and I'm like, man, that looks so cool. Like, down here, we're just, like, sweating our fucking balls
David
off.
showed up. What's up, Parker?
Hey, what's up? Let's see. Oh, I got, like, way behind. Yeah, Xanadu said it was never clear to me if the blood drinking actually happened. Yeah, I kind of doubt it. I think that was one of the things he pulled out his ass when he was trying to be like, hey, I'm crazy. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay. Well, I guess we can start on the case.
Yeah, okay.
We don't have anything to shout out to anybody or anything, do we?
No.
Okay.
American Military 100 said, I've been waiting ages for 13 o'clock to survey this case. So excited. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad everybody's excited.
right.
Well, like I said, I'm excited because I read a book about this guy like a long time ago when I was a kid. And I've always found him like really fascinating in an H.H. Holmes kind of way, just because. And like I said, I'm also kind of fascinated by the fact that he was like kind of a stupid motherfucker that thought he was really smart. Like
I said, a midwit.
Like in some of the beliefs that he had,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I thought it was like amusing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, it's not amusing because people got killed, but it's still like amusing that he thought he was gonna get away with it, like for really stupid reasons.
I subscribe to some of the really good science programs, you know, like fucking Lex Friedman. He's good. Event Horizon, and they'll have a bunch of scholars and scientists on there, different types, you know, and cosmologists, physicists, and they'll talk for hours on there. And you'll always notice, Avi Loeb actually has a really good analysis of scholarly types. He says a lot of it's a scene, and a lot of it is about status. You can tell the real smart motherfuckers, you know what I mean? If you ask them a question, they will say, I don't know. Okay, and they sit with unabashedly. They'll say, I don't know. A guy who's smart, but he's not that smart, he doesn't want to say, I don't know, because he doesn't want to look bad in front of his friends. So he tries to weasel his way around saying, I don't know. The whole thing about science is to know that you don't know. You know, that's part of the scientific process of trying to discover the truth. And a lot of times what you believe is truth changes because you get new evidence. So you don't get stuck. You can't get yourself stuck into a real concrete beliefs all the time. Things change. You know, new parts of the puzzle appear. So truth is always kind of temporary when it comes to science. And there's a lot of shit they don't know. They just think
not necessarily temporary, but provisional. I mean, it doesn't usually just like change wholesale. It's usually just, you know, it kind of changes piecemeal a little bit usually because things are like built on.
Well, it can.
It can, but it doesn't usually.
Some of the stuff that they're fighting with now, if it's true, then everything's wrong. Like there is one group of physicists that think that maybe time-space is an illusion, that it's not a reality, and that would fucking change everything. That places and the time stream and places is a figment of our imagination based upon the senses that we evolved with. That's fucking weird. And then there's some mathematical stuff that seems to, and things that happen in quantum physics that seem to indicate that, like how an object can be in two places at once. That's not possible. And how an object like a little subatomic particle can be in kind of like a general area, not in a single area. And it has to do with, we're judging the universe based upon our five senses, and with a human brain we're not really seeing the universe as it really is, and space-time may not be that real. And if that happens, everything changes, which explains a lot of the weird shit, you know, that they kind of see, you know, in terms of fucking supposed alien spacecraft and subatomic particles and paranormal type stuff that seems to happen, and consciousness, the effects of consciousness on things. And why the hell's most of the matter dark matter in the universe, all kinds of stuff.
Camp Guy says David Parker Ray, the toy box killer. Out of did we do a show about him? If not, he's in. I know I put him in the poll before. If we haven't done a show about it, and Oscar said I've been waiting ages for 13 o'clock to do the El Paso Walmart shooting. That's another one that I put it in the poll a couple times and it didn't win. But I keep, I have like a big list and I keep like rotating them out. So eventually, like we'll get to all of them probably. Camp Guy says, great book, The Dancing Wu Lee Masters. Yeah, I read that. Explains macro and quantum physics in everyday terms or language. Yeah, that actually was a really good book. I might have it in here somewhere now that I'm thinking about it.
See, one of the problems some of these guys talk about is that everything, that modern science and physics is expressed in mathematics. And these scientists have all been raised with the background of believing that everything can be that everything can be described as some kind of a mathematical expression, when no, probably not. Some guys are saying it's probably some kind of damn waveforms, and that mathematics is a totally human construct, which would change everything. We're just interpreting it in a mathematical way, but that it's not actually what it is. It's a lot more. It's not digital. Is what they're saying. They're saying it's analog. Which it's obvious that it's analog. You're just using mathematics to describe an analog process, which is only capturing a certain aspects of what we would call reality. There's a lot more to it than that. Not as predictable.
All right, so are we ready to get on with the acid murderer case?
Let's go.
Let's do this shit. This was actually like a good one to pick today because this was one that I kind of already knew a lot about, and it's not super complicated. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those ones where I was like, hey, 5 different cases that I had to like research and all this other kind of stuff. So it was like much easier. So George Haigh. Now, he was born in 1909. Like I said, he was born in, this is a British guy. He was born in Lincolnshire, but he moved to West Yorkshire later on when he was a kid and then spent a great deal of time there. Now, the household he was brought up in, like, I kind of feel like a lot has been made of this, and I'm sure it didn't help. I'm not saying that, that he would have come out normal if he'd, like, grown up in a normal household, but I don't really know. He might have just been a sociopath from the jump. But the household he grew up in was, his parents were what they called Plymouth Brethren, which is a real... I don't know, would I call them fanatical? They're pretty extreme. Very, very fundamentalist, very, very purist, like Bible, pretty much Bible stories were all you were allowed to do. It was one of those kind of like, no dancing, no entertainment, no anything.
What year was this?
Read the Bible. This was the 40s. Well, he was born in 1909, but he started killing people in the 40s. But, so they were like real
religious,
strict.
Yeah.
And basically it was one of those things where the Lord's always watching you, so you better not fuck up. And it's like they believed in, Mark of the Devil and all that other kind of stuff. So
for non-Westerners,
like I said, probably didn't help.
For the non-Western audience or people who are not really familiar with the Christianity, especially old Christianity, Christianity is a damn genre of religious experience based upon an entire genre of literature. It's a collection of cults. They all believe different things, kind of, and interpret these books in different ways. And it was weird. There was no single unifying church. And England had the Church of England, but it allowed a bunch of other stuff. The United States was nothing but just basically a collection of Christian cults and some large denominations. But the South was all Christian cults. Most of them Baptist cults. Each church was its own little thing. And I mean, when it's a church, I'm talking about a little building with a preacher and a denomination. It didn't connect to anything else. It was like a little private business. It had nothing to do with the state. So each one was a cult. So no telling what they would. There's no telling what they believed in. They believed in different versions of Christianity. It was all local. So there's no overarching control in it. So that's what I'm trying to say. Nothing Christianity said represents Christianity. Everything's just an individual take on it for the most part.
Well, I mean, yeah. So these people, like I said, they seemed very, very strict.
Yeah.
No dancing, no sports, no nothing. You just like sit around reading the Bible. Later on, like when John Haigh was older, he said, oh, my childhood was really lonely. Like, I wasn't really allowed to hang out with anybody. Like, his dad had built this really tall fence, like, around the house. So, like, nobody could see in and they couldn't see out. It was just this whole, like, weird thing. I don't know how true it is because, not gonna lie, like, some of the stuff that he said later on was probably bullshit. So he might have maybe exaggerated, but the Plymouth Brethren cult were kind of extreme, gonna say that.
Yeah.
Another thing, too, was that his dad, apparently, used to tell him, oh, the whole outside world is evil, so they can't, like, associate with them.
Probably no radio, no TV, none of that.
Yeah, nothing like that. I mean, obviously, like, in 1909, that was kind of a little bit before that, but yeah, you couldn't really, you couldn't, like, go to movies, or you couldn't, like, I don't even think they were allowed to, like, read other books or anything.
Yeah, this wasn't that unusual. My granddad on my mother's side of the family, who worked for NASA, McDonnell Douglas, Grumman Aerospace. He was an aerospace engineer. Fucking worked on a fucking bunch of projects. Like fucking the Saturn project, worked on fucking the nuclear fucking propulsion rocket that they were working on and everything. And he was like this. He was anti-television, anti-radio. It was just prayer groups and Bible meetings in homes. They were so strict that they thought churches themselves were sinful. Because the Bible says don't do that. The New Testament said don't do that. So you could only meet in people's houses, like back in fucking 2nd century Rome, all right? So this was actually quite common in the United States, too, in this era. My granddad was from this generation. So not that unusual, what I'm saying. The world has changed a lot.
Thankfully.
Well, yeah. They were a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean,
they worried about stuff that...
And there's a few of them still around, and they're still a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and it didn't have anything to do with intelligence. My granddad he was a genius, super intelligent. But you could fall for these weird esoteric beliefs out of these old fucking books that it didn't really have an impact on modern day, really. But you can get yourself jacked up into believing things that... It's like LARPing. They're LARPing, if you ask me. Live action role playing. That's what it was.
Camp Guy said rock and roll is devil music. I knew a kid whose mother was against rock music. Yeah, I knew a couple kids like that too.
Yeah.
Not so many in the 80s, but it wasn't as it was a lot more widespread than people might think. You know what I mean? Where like you weren't allowed to like have any kind of like rock music or anything. John Smith said it's almost like if you're exposed to outside influences and ideas, you might question what you're being told. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why do you think like Cult 101, starting a cult, is isolate them from everyone else.
Yeah.
And they're only around other cult members. That's why they do that.
You would think a cult like Bible thumpers like that would not be welcome in a military industrial complex, especially the aerospace stuff, which is all and he was working on skunk work stuff and Lockheed Martin. No. They sought them out because they wouldn't talk. And they usually came out of religious universities, so therefore there was no way they would have any communist sympathies. That was the way it was back then. But they had Bible thumper religious guys working in the military industrial complex, especially aerospace, because they could trust them. Just a different time. You could trust them to keep their mouths shut.
Because they thought God was watching them.
Well, they saw the United States as a Christian country, all right. And they were in a Cold War fighting a godless enemy called the Soviet Union. So they would keep their mouths shut, and they didn't believe newspaper. They hated the newspapers, television, and Hollywood. They didn't like any of those people, so they wouldn't talk to them. You know, they saw them as communist sympathizers. So you didn't want to go to Harvard University fucking social studies fucking programs to get scientists. You wanted to go to fucking private Christian colleges and get guys that were coming out of the physics classes and aerospace. Back in those days, you could become an aerospace engineer a lot easier because there was a lot less to learn. You know what I mean? But it was mostly just physics and ideas about mechanical stresses and you know how hot could you get certain types of steel before they would bend, that kind of stuff.
Granther says Granther was raised in an evangelical church. Looking back, it was a mix of paranoia, victimhood, and suspicion about rock music, movies, literature, Democrats, media, and Democrats. I think it kind of still is that, but...
And, and I couldn't understand it. It was anti-heavy metal. Pissed me off. Coming out of the damn heavy metal. They didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Stop messing with my
Stop
heavy
fucking
metal.
with heavy metal, man.
I was more mad. I wasn't into heavy metal, but I was like, quit taking my horror movies away.
Yeah.
Don't take my parents weren't like that.
Yeah.
My parents didn't give a shit about religion.
And that was the old the old Republicans that you hear Democrats complaining about a lot. Well, that was like my parents' generation. Nowadays, the Republicans of today listen to fucking Marilyn Manson and fucking heavy metal and shit. And they're not like that anymore. But yeah, that pissed off. Heavy metal was actually Christian if you actually analyzed it, because they were always singing about what the devil would do. Well, to believe in the devil, you have to be Christian. They weren't atheists.
See, that's what I always thought.
Yeah. They were just getting that back at the parents and fuck this shit.
To be honest, though, I kind of feel like atheism, even when I was in college, like in high school and college, where I grew up in Daytona Beach, I kind of feel like atheism was like a step too far, because I was in a class and like I didn't really think that much about it.
Yeah.
And and I said something about like not believing in God or something like that, and like everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I was just kind of like,
yeah.
Like, to me, it wasn't weird, but it's like all these other people are like, were like the dude in Scanners.
Yeah. Oh, man, the Bible thumpers hated Iron Maiden. If you go fucking read Iron Maiden lyrics, they never read any of the lyrics of the music.
Of course not.
If you actually looked at...
Why would they, like, learn about something?
Yeah. The whole ethos of fucking Iron Maiden was essentially Christian, really. Basically Christian. I mean, it wasn't a religious band.
Which is probably why I wasn't really into it.
It's all from the point of view of fucking the Anglican point of view. You know what I mean? Because it was English, and the British Empire had its own church, and the sensibilities were Judeo-Christian sensibilities, and that's Iron Maiden is filled with that. Almost like ideas like chivalry and right and wrong, and it's all there. So it wasn't satanic at all. It just kind of had a sinister album covers.
Well, like I said, I kind of feel like a lot of people that pissed and moaned about heavy metal or horror movies or anything like that didn't really get it. They didn't really watch them, or they didn't really understand like the whole context of the shit. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody has to like heavy metal or horror movies or anything, but it just like, it pissed me off because they obviously didn't know shit about it. They didn't know shit about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they were talking about it like they knew about it. And I was like,
that song says number of the beast. They said 666. If you analyze the song is about a dude who went out into the woods and saw a satanic fucking ritual. And he wasn't sure if he dreamt it or if it really happened. That's all. That's what the song says.
Yeah.
Well,
like I said, people like that, which is why I like that Granthers used the word victimhood.
Yeah.
Because people like that like to think that they're persecuted, so it's kind of like part of their whole thing. So they're just kind of like, oh, well, everybody... And also they like to over-dramatize everything. They're like big, huge drama queens. So they're all the time, it's just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. They're killing babies and all. I'm just like, just please settle down. No one's doing that. Zach said, I remember growing up in the 2000s, and it was still considered the edgiest thing ever to be an atheist as a kid. Yeah, it was actually still pretty edgy, I feel like, into the 2000s. Because I was in college in the 90s, like the early 90s. And, it's in the South, but yeah, people still looked at me like I was fucking insane, like when I said that. Even though to me, it was just like nothing. So I was just like... Yeah. Why are you looking at me like that?
Being an atheist is more edgy than being a Satanist. Just ask Glenn Danzig.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you said you were a Satanist, because when I was in junior high and in high school and looked like a goth, like when they didn't know what goth was back then, so they would just think you were a Satanist, so they'd make fun of you and beat you up and stuff, but they knew what that was. Like, if you were an atheist, they were just like, their mouths would drop open. They just had no concept.
You're a freak.
Yeah, they had no concept of that.
Right. They're like throwing the paradigm away.
That's what I mean. And to me, it just seemed very, very strange. I'm just like, why is that weird? I didn't understand why it was weird.
Yeah. What was weird for me is that now I'm getting into my own personal thing. We got time because we didn't do an intro too much on this show. I always kind of believed that there was a God, but I thought Christianity was just kind of something that was stories left over about some preacher fucking from Galilee And, you know, he was a wise man, and then, but he was just a regular mortal man, and he was kind of memorialized in the New Testament. I thought that was just and I didn't really think it was a bad thing, but I thought people were taking the shit too far.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh man, you know, he's saying good shit, but he wasn't like you. He was a dude probably more like me. He's hanging out, he's partying with these women and shit, telling everybody else that they're all uptight and need to settle down. And
Yeah, he's like hippie.
Yeah, kind of like hippie. You know, kind of like a Marilyn Manson of his day or something. You know, hey, chill the fuck out. You know. Well, okay, Marilyn Manson of today is not the young Marilyn Manson of our day. Back when he was going on Jerry Springer having fun and shit. But anyway,
that was a long time.
That's a long time ago. Yeah. But over the time, I just kind of evolved into being a fucking mythicist. I'm not against religion. I like religions. I don't think they're true per se, but neither is King Arthur, and those are all great story, great mythology. You can learn, you know, from mythology, kind of like what Joseph Campbell says. You know what I mean? And mythology can strengthen you.
Well, I mean, there's reasons that humans come up with those stories over and over again.
Right. But
so
now,
it can give you some insight into how people think and their behavior and stuff. That's all.
But as soon as I got into my 40s and really started to listen to guys that know the Bible really well, all right, and can compare it to other Roman religions and everything, if there was a guy named Jesus, none of him exists in the New Testament anymore. It was every story about him was something borrowed from a Roman religion. So I'd say probably there was no Jesus. It's Dionysus that they're talking about.
Well, among other
gods. Other gods. It's totally Roman, and that's just the way Romans did religions. You know,
that's the way
kind of like the MCU. Basically.
That's what I mean. And it's like a lot of people have like, you know, you might think that's a glib comparison. It's totally not.
No, it's not at all.
That's basically the same thing.
Basically the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It was the club scene behind it. It's
just that as far as I know, nobody thinks like the Hulk or Iron Man are real. But other than that, it's similar.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing.
Well, early Christians are saying, well, was Jesus ever born in the flesh or is he just in the spirit? So they're saying things in the Pauline epistles. So what it is the early Christians, some of them believe that he never lived. Other ones is thinking, no, that was a real guy. You know, but he was not a real guy. It's an angel they're talking about, basically.
Oracle said, preacher's kid here, I have a very cynical view of institutional religion because I've seen the backstage stuff. Yeah, I can imagine. Right. Well, that's usually why preacher's kids turn out to be like, fuck this shit. Like, I'm going to go do all the drugs.
If you want to embrace true spirituality and be able to face death and the afterlife, don't go for institutionalized religion. Go look at mythicism and learn what mythology does. You'll understand it. Doesn't mean that it isn't true. It's just not the kind of true you're used to. It's a different kind of truth.
Granther said, funny how Christians reject other religions for having bizarre beliefs, but they believe in the bizarre, like the virgin birth, which is, well, everything is bizarre if you didn't grow up with it. That's the thing. And I kind of feel like, I think that was one of the things that kind of got me into, like, just rejecting religions wholesale when I was a kid, was that, you know, wherever it is, I said if I'd been born in the Middle East or if I'd been born in China or something like that, I would have a completely different set of beliefs than, but, you know, people don't really go outside. I feel like a lot of people didn't go outside of what they were raised with. So everything that they weren't raised with was weird. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, but we're weird to them. Yeah. Like, because they're used to totally different stuff.
Christianity is a perfect example of Darwinian evolution. Over time, it evolved into a belief system that could survive for thousands of years. And it did it because it didn't commit to anything. For every one thing it tells you in one book, in another book, and nowhere else, in another place, it'll tell you exactly the opposite. So you can pick and choose. Like, for instance, if you were to ask the question, can I, as a Christian, eat meat that was sacrificed to a Roman idol? In one part, it will say, yes, because you're a Christian and you know that is not a real God that the Romans sacrificed it to, and you're a guest in this person's house, by all means, eat that meat. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't count because that is not
shit's imaginary.
That is not a real God, and there's no reason to offend your host. And then in another place, in another book, it'll say, if you ask the same question, should I eat meat sacrificed to a Roman idol? It says, hell no, God will strike you down. You'll burn in hellfire. So you can pick whatever one you want. And that allowed it to live a long time, survive for thousands of years. It's Darwinian evolution through literature. So when people think of Christianity, it's always their own version of Christianity. Okay? There's good stuff in there and bad stuff, depending on your point of view. And people are picking and choosing what they want.
Depending on what they're already like.
But yeah,
that's the problem.
Right.
You're just gonna you're gonna bring to it whatever you're already like. That's why I'm always like, I always get mad if people say, oh, we need religion like for morality. I'm like, no, you already have morality naturally. You're bringing that to the religion and having your own kind of like thing. Right. But you already have those beliefs.
And that doesn't mean that it's a malfunctioning religion. No, it's functioning. That's what it was supposed to do. It's a mythology, and that's what all mythologies did. They were to strengthen you, okay, and to strengthen your community. That's what they're for. They survived the test of time. You know what I mean? That one has survived the test of time. Is it literally true? No. But there's a lot of stuff that I believed in the Army that wasn't literally true, but we won because we believed it. All right? Life is psychological. Psychology is the main part of the fight for survival. Can you build new religions? Yeah, kinda. But they all have to be rooted in the past, because the past is where the authority comes from. And if the past isn't there, you have to make a fake past to fit it. And they all did that. Christianity did that. There's a lot of stuff in the Christianity, like the crucifixion itself. That's not a historical event. That didn't happen. It's an allegory for the Jewish scapegoat ritual. You know, that it's Jewish blood magic. You let the goat go and then slaughter the fucking perfect lamb and wash away the tribe's sins with it. Well, that's the same as letting Barabbas go and killing Jesus to save, and through his blood you're saving the sins of people who have accepted his sacrifice. So instead of sacrificing a lamb, you're sacrificing a demigod, somebody who was like Hercules. His father was God. Well, shit, the magical blood of that can wipe away the sins of everyone, everywhere, throughout time, in the future, the past, everything. Because even Moses was saved by it, and he could go to prison. He could go to heaven. They knew exactly what they were doing, but this is the MCU, man. This is literature. This is mythology. It's comic book stuff, but people read comic books to strengthen themselves too. Same thing.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I don't shit on comic books or movies or anything like that, because people are getting the same
thing out
of it. So, you know, don't denigrate it. It's the same thing.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Just don't force other people to believe it. That's part of the thing. That's your belief.
Well, yeah, that's where I have a problem. Like, believe whatever the fuck you want, but you know, the moment that it starts like infringing on other people's shit, then we got a problem.
Yeah, and no two cult agreed with one another. That's why the founding fathers said, no, there is a God, this and that, but stop all this religious shit because it'll tear itself apart. They were secular in some ways. They were deists. The founding fathers were deists. That'd be a good.
Well, they basically thought, God created the world and then he sat back and he doesn't involve himself. Yeah. So they didn't believe that prayer was effective or anything like that.
No, you had to do stuff.
They basically saw God, the creator, as like a clockmaker that just made it and then said, like, let it run.
They were also Masons, so a lot of times they're describing what the Masonic orders would call the Grand Architect, is what they're talking about. And it was non-denominational. You had Muslims in the early Masons. I think we had one Muslim convert, was one of the founding fathers. I forgot which one he was. But he was also a Mason. Masons could be of any religion. Because they said, these are our mythological tales. The true God is a God we don't know yet. We're going to call him the fucking Grand Architect. He made everything, including these religions.
Well, they didn't believe. The main thing was they didn't believe in an interventionist, like someone that could intervene in like human affairs.
No, it wasn't.
Like you're pretty much on your own.
It was not the way of the Grand Architect.
Right. Like I said, he built it, and then he was like, "Yeah, you're on your own."
You do it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
John Smith says they're pointing out that Aleister Crowley was also raised Plymouth Brethren, just like this motherfucker.
Okay, yeah.
Even though Aleister Crowley, I would argue, turned out like much better. As far as I know, Aleister Crowley didn't dissolve anyone in acid.
No, yeah.
So, you know.
Crowley was mostly just a fucking fraud, you know.
Well, I mean, he was just having a good time.
Yeah,
he was having a good time, shocking people. It was that.
He inspired L. Ron Hubbard to create Scientology in a certain way.
Yeah.
Because Crowley made a few bucks on the side with by inventing some make a motherfucker a wizard programs. If you paid him enough, he'd make you a wizard.
That's right.
And you could level up.
John Smith said, true, Crowley just ate poop. Well,
I don't remember that.
I'm not saying I advocate eating poop. I'm just saying if you're not hurting anybody else, I'm not going to do it.
He must have done that in some kind of ritual.
And I'm not going to, like, want to be around you if you do it, because that's fucking gross. But, hey, you're not hurting anybody.
They didn't really know how to be goths back then, okay?
That's what it was. Well, we have to do some really extreme shit. Well, let's eat poop. I don't want to do that. Yeah, but it'll be like super shocking. So really, do we really have to? Well, I can't think of anything else.
Had he been born in the early 70s, he just would have been a goth kid in the 90s. That's all. That's all.
No poop eating involved.
No. He'd have been hanging out at the fucking vault or something down in New York.
Camp Guy said, I heard Crowley was a very rich kid with nothing to do. Yeah, I kind of feel like that happened a lot. Like,
wasn't super rich, but
you could get away with a lot more too. Like if you had money, because you know, obviously. But I mean, you know, anybody with money gets away with stuff. All right, so yeah, we got very very distracted by this whole like religious, and then there's more of it because one of the things that his dad said to him, which may or may not have made a big impression on it. I'm not trying to like excuse the dude. I'm just saying that, you know, his childhood was probably like kind of fucked up. And I am going to go out on a limb here. I don't know what the percentage is like right offhand, but it does seem like a lot of serial killers were brought up in very religious and or authoritarian households. I mean, that really does seem to be very common. Like, not all of them, obviously, because some of them just had, like, really normal childhoods and were probably just, like, fucked up from birth. But...
well, anything can happen because...
But I do feel like a lot, like, maybe a disproportionate amount of them did come from these types of households. Like, that were, like, super, super strict or super religious or super, I mean, abusive, obviously, but...
well, there's also a lot of fucked up kids that come out of households that don't even have fathers. Okay, where the mother's not around and there's no father and the kid just runs wild. Then they go just gun down a bunch of kids.
That's not great either.
So yeah, it's just they tend to come from any kind of extreme situation.
Maybe that's what it is. Like because any kind of extreme situation, you're not gonna. It's gonna be much harder for you to like integrate into. So it's harder for you to make friends. It's harder for you to relate to your parents, like learn how to like manage your emotions, like that kind of stuff. So if that's not happening when you're a kid, then it'll fuck you up later on. So so his dad, like I said, thought the world was evil and we need to keep ourselves apart from that. Now his dad apparently had some kind of like mole or some kind of or something like on his forehead, like some kind of mark, and he told the kid, oh, this mark is there because I sinned in my youth. So it's like the mark of the devil.
I've heard of that. There were people that believed that kind of stuff.
So basically, like John Haigh, when he was a kid, he got like really freaked out by just like, oh my God, if I do something bad, I'm going to have like this, which like I said, it's not really that big a deal. I don't know what this mark looked like if it was like some big fucked up
there may have been people that actually believed that, or he was just fucking with the kid. But I think there were people that actually believed that if you sinned, your kids would come out kind of fucked up with marks on them.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
But so he spent a lot of his childhood, so he said, he was like terrified that if he ever did something bad, then he would develop this like mark of the devil like on his forehead. Now like the dad also told him like, well, your mom doesn't have one because she's like saintly. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. Now apparently, like I said, according to him and like maybe some other people that knew him at the time, but they said one of the kind of things that maybe led him more toward getting away from whatever this childhood situation was figuring out that his dad was probably full of shit. that whole thing about you can't do anything bad or like you're gonna grow a weird thing on your forehead. That he found out that wasn't true, because I think he did like a couple bad like minor things, like as a kid, like he lied about something or some shit like that, and then he kept like expecting, oh my god, this fucking fucked up thing is gonna like grow on my forehead, but it didn't. So he's like, that motherfucker lied to me. You know what I mean? So I think after that, he's like, well, if he lied about that, like what the fuck else is he lying about? So he's not that dumb. I'm saying that. So he did like figure that much out when he was a kid.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Parish of Doom's going on about the definitions of a cult. True definition of a cult is a very small church. That's all it is. It's not a negative connotation. People think that cult means something bad. It doesn't. It means it's real smaller than a denomination. You know, Christianity started off as a cult, and then a series of competing cults. The only Christianity I would call true religions, I guess you could say, would be the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholic Church, Egyptian Coptic, and Church of England. Those are big enough. Church of Mormon is big enough to be considered, a church or a denomination. But most of anything else, anything smaller than that, would be cults. Southern Baptist is a cult. Groups of cults. They're just local little church houses with a fucking pastor, or not pastor, what do you call it? Preacher. And they're all self-styled. Nothing wrong with it. It's just that's the way those churches are. They're cults, though. Little cult. Small, tiny, mini religion. That's all.
Zach says, I'm surprised no ex-Scientologists have turned out to be serial killers as far as I know. Yeah. You would think, like, as fucked up as that shit is. I mean, maybe. I'd have to look that... Ooh, that would be an interesting topic. I'm going to have to look that up, like, after. John Smith, sorry, this was funny. John Smith said, I'll bet the first thing Abraham said to Isaac after the angel intervened was, best not to tell your mother about this. See, that's what I always thought. When I read that Bible story, I'm like, man, that is fucked up. And I think I was like 7 or 8 when I read that. I'm like, that's fucked up. That's really what they want me to fucking believe.
Well, they've changed the story to try to erase a little bit of the past, or certain parts. Judaism was kind of like the ancient man getting back into Christian.
Yeah,
certain
I mean,
parts,
I'm kind of tired. I don't really want you to like kind of go on and on like all night if this is what the show's about.
Certain parts of ancient Judaism provided or did sacrifice, child sacrifice. The firstborn always belonged, or was always sent back to God. The firstborn of any animal and the firstborn of any human was sacrificed. They find them in little clay pots every now and then. So what they're doing is they've written a story to commemorate stopping that's no longer required. I don't know if Judaism was not monotheistic. It was kind of like in the ancient times. It was more kind of like the Greek and the Roman pantheon. They had bunches of gods, not one. They had the father of the gods and all his sons. One of them was Molech, and Molech was one that did human sacrifice by fire. And then Yahweh was one that wasn't God yet. That was sending children back to Yahweh. El Shaddai was the father of the gods. But that all got re-engineered into monotheism later. Okay. I mean, Jenny's going, come on, we got to go. Okay.
I know. It's like, I told you before I was like really sleepy. And I was like, this is not what the show's about.
You want another drink?
Yeah. Okay. Allison Wonderland said, birthmark looking like Baphomet. That's kind of like what I imagined when I was thinking about this dude's dad. I was like, now what kind of birthmark are we talking about? Does it look like... So then I imagined like... He's like this with like literal devil horns like coming out of his head. It's like, look, son, this is what'll happen if you do like some bad shit. It's a fucking birthmark. Granther said, absolutely true that some serial killers were raised in evangelical homes. See, I thought, like I said, I don't know what the percentage is, but it does seem like from all of the serial killers and stuff like that I've read about, a significant portion of them do come from evangelical homes. Because like I said, usually it's very like authoritarian. And he says the Bible is violent, xenophobic, and misogynistic tome. Yes, it is. I agree. Gramthers bucked the trend and became a cop. Very fine line between cops and criminals, though. Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, Gorbachev. They're talking about his birthmark. So so the whole birthmark thing. So apparently, John Haigh figures out, well, I'm not going to sprout a weird birthmark on my head if I do something bad, which maybe in his kid brain led to him thinking, oh, well, if there's no, I don't know, maybe he'd been raised with kind of an idea that if you do something bad, like it will physically manifest on your body. I'm just like speculating here. But when that didn't happen and he realized that his parents had lied to him, then he jumped from that to, oh, well, I can obviously just do anything the fuck that I want to. Because I do kind of feel like he had that attitude. Now, like I'm saying, it could just be that this motherfucker was a sociopath from the get-go, because he did seem to, but I don't know. I don't know if he was one of those guys that would have done this fucked up shit without being raised like that, or if it was a confluence of factors or what it was. But at any rate, we know how it turned out. So 1934, he actually stopped. He left the Plymouth Brethren, religion, and he married this woman who was 21, and her name was Beatrice Hamer. Now, he didn't really know her all that well. I don't really know. I don't even remember, like, where he met her, like, where he met her. But it seemed like he's like, well, maybe I should just get married. I kind of feel like, just from what I know about him, maybe it was just kind of like, well, guys like me, like, should get married. So, you'll do whatever. So it was just like that kind of thing. Now she was a little more reluctant, I guess. Like, he was very charming, like a lot of sociopaths are. He had really good manners. He was like just a normal looking dude. Like I said, you've seen pictures of him. He doesn't look like a monster. He doesn't look weird. He doesn't look like a creep or anything like that. He just looked like a normal fucking dude. And for a while, he sort of kind of had normal jobs. Like, he worked in, like, he sold insurance, and like he did advertising, shit like that. Like, he just had regular middle manager type jobs. So, but she wasn't real sure about it, but she's just like, whatever, it's the 30s, you kind of had to get married, so they did. Now, for a little while, him and Beatrice lived with John Haigh's parents. The weirdos, the weird religious people. Now, this marriage apparently only lasted about 4 months. The marriage ended because John Haigh was arrested in October of 1934, and he got sent to prison for fraud. And this was the first of many, many times. Like I said, he was one of those motherfuckers like H.H. Holmes that just started, like, he's like, well, I don't really want to have, like, a real job where I have to, like, work or anything. So it's much easier to just defraud people out of their money. But he apparently wasn't super good at it because he kept getting caught. So he goes to prison for fraud. Now, while he was in jail, Beatrice had their kid, who was a baby daughter. Now, she, because she's like, well, this motherfucker's in jail, and I guess she didn't want to raise the baby by herself, and like I said, back in the 30s, there would have been a horrible stigma about it, so she gave the kid up for adoption, and then she's like, okay, well, I'm leaving this motherfucker. Now, John Haigh apparently saw her one more time and said, oh, well, we were never officially married anyway, because I already had a wife. Which was not true, but he told her that, so keep it classy, John. So she took off. And after that, John Haigh's very, very religiously conservative family were like, yeah, fuck you. And they basically, I don't know if they disowned him, like, formally, but they were like, yeah, we don't want anything else to do with you. So John Haigh moves to London in 1936, and he starts working as a chauffeur. Hey, it's Pookie. What's up, Pook?
Pook's gonna be on the show.
You gonna be on the show? You want to say something? What do you want to say? You want to say something?
Like, fuck all this shit.
She's like, I don't want to say nothing.
Yeah. She's like,
she stuck her tongue out. She was
throw.
like,
Let's throw.
Yeah, she's like, why aren't you playing with me?
She likes to throw. She wants me to throw stuff at her.
Yeah.
So she can catch it.
What?
Yeah, see?
What's the matter?
She sees the screen.
She's like, what's up? She's like, oh my God, you're right here.
Yeah.
And you're right there.
She saw herself. She saw herself.
Maybe she did.
She's been watching the screen, fucking when I have the little tablet up. People talking. She goes, that's us. Yeah. Okay.
Well, she seems to understand, like, when she jumps up and looks at herself in the mirror, she seems to understand that that's her.
Yeah. I take my earbud out and put it in her ear, and she's like, what? And then for a second, she'll relax, and I'll put it in there, and she'll look at my tablet.
Like, oh.
And she goes, oh, yeah, that man's talking.
That man's talking.
Yeah. It's funny.
She is very funny.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, I've seen her look in the mirror too, and I'll be like, "That's Pookie," and she's like looking, and then she'll look at me, and then she looks in the mirror.
Yeah.
It
takes a while to get it.
It's super funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. So this motherfucker starts working as a chauffeur. He works for this guy named William McSwan. Now, this dude was pretty wealthy, and he owned, like, a bunch of, I don't know if I'd call them, like, amusement parks, but they were kind of like, this was the 30s. So it was kind of like this big, like, boardwalks where there was, like, a lot of games and shit like that. Like, he owned a bunch of those. So John Haigh drove this guy around and also, like, worked, like, maintaining the machines, like, along the arcades or whatever. Now, so they worked together for a while, and apparently, like, that went okay. And then he decided, well, I need to do some more fraud. So, because he was getting rusty, I guess. So he decides to pretend that he's a solicitor named William Cato Adamson. So he basically, what he would do was he would sell fake stock shares at below market rates. So he did this for a little while. So like I said, we're building up to some shit like H.H. Holmes used to do, where they're always trying to like, hey, we're going to do like fake insurance policies or, just like selling stock and that kind of stuff. So he's doing that kind of stuff. Now, interestingly, I was watching an earlier video about this, and they said this is probably the only time in history that like a grammar Nazi has got somebody caught for something. Somebody noticed that the letterhead that he had made had a misspelled word on it, and for whatever reason reported this to the police because they were suspicious. I had no idea that like misspelling stuff was illegal, but I don't know. I'm sure there was more to it than that, but yeah, he got reported to the police, and the police investigated, and they're like, okay, well, this guy is completely fake, and he actually ended up getting a 4-year prison sentence for fraud because of the shit he was doing, selling the fake
Must
stock
have been
shares.
an egregious misspelling. Somebody was like,
It wasn't. It was actually, it was a city called Guildford, which has a D in it, and he spelled it Guilford without the D. And that was apparently enough to make somebody really suspicious. Which, like I said, I guess if you're a solicitor and you're selling stock shares and you can't even spell the name of your own city, that is kind of fishy.
Right.
I was gonna say. I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily call the cops about it, but maybe they were like more, like maybe they were more into it. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So while he's in jail for this 4 years, like on this fraud sentence, he's like, okay, what else can I do like to keep from having to get a normal job? We have to do some more fraud, but we have to be more careful about getting caught next time. So he's like, I'm going to start going after rich old ladies, and I'm going to basically not leave witnesses alive because that's kind of gotten me into trouble
they'll talk,
thus far.
Yeah.
So maybe if I kill them, then everything will be golden. Now, here's the funny part. He convinced himself that if there was no body, then ipso facto there was no crime, and he would not get in trouble for it. From what I understand, it was from, like I said, this is about this motherfucker thinking he's like way smarter than he is. Yeah. I think it was because he misunderstood the concept of corpus delicti.
Yeah.
Corpus delicti, he thought, meant no body, no crime. That's not what that means. Corpus delicti only means the body of the crime. Meaning that before you can be prosecuted for a crime, we have to prove that a crime occurred. It doesn't have anything to do with there being a dead body. They can still prove that somebody was murdered even if they don't find a body, if there's enough other evidence. And he apparently didn't get that memo. He seemed to legitimately think that if there was no body, then you could confess to the shit and they still couldn't do anything to you.
This is something he heard in the zeitgeist of the day, too. I mean,
sure.
They would see things on crime movies, and, well, there's no body, there's no crime. Just because some character in a movie said that, because some dude who wrote the movie
he was like,
thought that, oh, that's true. There's a lot of that shit going on.
But bing, the little light bulb goes on.
And it goes to the highest levels of fucking society. I've heard fucking people in charge of whole governments say shit about warfare that's totally not true, where their whole understanding of warfare came from movies. You know what I mean? They don't know anything about that. You know, fucking if you don't. There's certain things you can only know if you serve in militaries during wartime. So it's the same thing. It's not just dumbasses, okay? So-called intelligent people fall victim to that fucking syndrome because they heard it in other places. They think they know something about it. They don't.
But that's kind of the whole thing. I mean, I will submit that it is more difficult to prove murder, for example, if they don't have a body. But if there is a preponderance of other evidence, if it's enough, then yeah, they can absolutely convict. And it has happened before. Like I said, it's harder, but it can be done. But he seemed to really think, and we'll get into like some shit later that says that he absolutely did believe this, that if there wasn't a body, then there wasn't anything that anyone could do about it. You could even run down the street and say, I killed so-and-so, and everybody's like, well, we can't do anything. There's no body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally untrue.
That is not true. That is not true. Just in case you were like thinking.
There are people that went to death row with no bodies.
Yeah. Like I said, it's harder to prove it, but, you know, obviously much easier if you have a body. But if there's enough other evidence, then yeah.
If there's a missing person and then somebody comes forward and says, I saw that person kill that other person, and they can do the place and time where the crime scene was, and you get that person in front of a fucking jury. No, you know what I mean. And the testimony sounds good. You can get the dude convicted.
Well, and the thing about this dumbass,
even if he didn't do it, you can get him convicted.
The thing about this dumbass too was that I think he had the mistaken idea that I could just dissolve these bodies, but it didn't dissolve them completely. It's like there's still evidence left behind.
Yeah, just dumb.
Stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, you know.
You can indict a ham sandwich. That is true, and you can convict anybody you get them in front of the right jury. You could even convict the innocent. So I don't know what this motherfucker's thinking about.
Like I said, this dude was
dumb.
Not that bright.
Right.
Not that bright.
If they think you killed somebody, you're responsible for somebody who's come up missing, they're going to get a conviction on you. You know, just the way it's going to happen.
I mean, and like I said, a lot of it has to do with, you know, what jury you get, what judge you get, what, you know.
How much money you have.
That too.
If you can't afford a fucking really good defense.
That's probably like a big factor, sadly.
Yep.
But yeah.
If you're broke, you're at their mercy.
Yeah, so I'm in big trouble.
Yep.
But I just have to like never go outside. And
if you're well connected and got millions of dollars, you're gonna walk.
Mostly, yeah. Mostly. I mean, 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Or they'll get like a much lesser sentence, and even if they do get convicted, they'll spend it in like some cushy fucking country club of a prison somewhere.
You better fight your way out of it. If you got dirt on other people, you'll never get convicted.
So because this motherfucker thought that, like while he was in prison, he decided, well, I need to figure out how to like get rid of the bodies then. So he starts working with sulfuric acid. Now, there was some sulfuric acid in the prison. I guess it was like in the tin shop. So what he would do is he would catch mice in the prison and then dissolve them. Poor mousies. And then he would dissolve them in the acid to see how long it would take. And then he would extrapolate, you know, if the mouse is X size, then how long would a human take? Like a mouse, in case you wanted to know, takes about 30 minutes to dissolve in sulfuric acid. So he's like, okay, well, how long would a 200-pound human being take? Shit like that. So he's doing like some mathematical shit. Like I said, probably thinking he was like super, super intelligent when he did like the mathematics to go with that. So yeah. I will say too that I think that he got the idea for the sulfuric acid from this dude, this French murderer named George Alexandre Ciarra. And he had also disposed of bodies using sulfuric acid. Now, Ciarra was actually guillotined for a double murder that took place in 1925. He might have been the last person guillotined in that particular area of France. I can't really remember. But he only killed 2 people, but kind of for the same reasons that that George Haigh did. But that's where George Haigh got the idea from. That he's like, oh, that French guy, he had a good idea. He just like dissolved. But the stupid thing is that obviously that guy still got caught and beheaded, though. I mean, did that last part of the story like not resonate, or? I was just kind of like, I thought his whole thing about like having to dissolve the bodies in acid was so he doesn't get caught because there's no body. I'm like, Yeah, but that guy dissolved people in acid, and he got caught and executed.
These motherfuckers,
So,
they think they're geniuses. Okay,
That's what I mean.
and really, man, I don't want to help. I've said so much fucking good shit on this show over the years, and I'm saying, well, I don't want to help any of these motherfuckers, but it is
They're not watching this shit. Well, they might be. I don't know.
It is so fucking easy. Okay, you just have to have practical skills. And all you got to do is just look at the skills that hunters use for field dressing and the skills that regular food industry guys with fucking butchering, okay? It is so sanitary, so easy to field dress a deer in the field and to separate things like internal organs from the skeleton and the meat and the hides and everything. And you can do this in a clean, pristine environment in under an hour. Okay, these dudes are so fucking boneheaded, you know, and you won't even leave very many traces behind, like blood or anything. And it's not even macabre. It's part of food processing, a basic skill that Stone Age level hunters had. You don't even need advanced fucking equipment. Groups of men with handheld pieces of volcanic glass or sharpened flint. Sharpened flint cutting tools. A group of 3 or 4 guys could reduce a fucking elephant down into fucking small, packageable, cookable parts within a few hours. And with no waste. Okay? Something the size of a deer or a human. Fucking child's play. Where are you worried about all this shit about, I gotta get acid, I gotta do this, and that? It's just, what the fuck are you talking about?
And I kind of feel like if you're buying sulfuric acid, maybe not so much
That's
back
a red
then,
flag right there.
but everybody's like, "Why are you buying sulfuric acid?" I don't know. I like collecting sulfuric acid.
Disposal can be mafia style. If you have good connections, put a dude in the trunk, have the fucking car fucking crushed and fucking melted. That's the Detroit way. Okay, down the scrapyard. If it's something fucking homemade, same way you would process a deer for food. Same thing. Same thing. But what it is they're cowards. They're squeamish. They don't have any fucking
I don't even think it's
skills.
that. I just think they're not that bright.
They're not that stupid. Yeah. You don't even get dirty.
I just think they're not that bright.
Yeah.
They're overthinking it.
Yeah, overthinking.
They're overthinking it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're not trying to help anybody.
No.
I'm just saying.
No.
They're
And so, well, how do you do that in a house? Bathtub. If you were going to clean a deer, you take the fucker to the bathtub. If you're going to have to do it indoors. Usually we didn't, though. We usually would put a chain around a neck and use a fucking carry-all and fucking jack them up into fucking lower tree limbs so they're hanging up. And then that's we would process them outside. And underneath the deer, you have a fucking ice chest with no ice in it, but you're putting all the meat in there and then you transfer it all to the freezer. Well, you could transfer it somewhere else if you wanted to. Just dumb going through all this shit.
Danny Rolling is telling some really, really funny
What's he
acid
saying?
jokes.
Yeah.
What do you call someone who only drinks kosher hydrochloric acid? An acidic Jew. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
Does that
one.
qualify as a Jewish joke? That's racist.
I mean, not really. It's just, it's a pun.
Yeah, I know.
It's not really a Jewish joke. It's just a pun.
It was a joke.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good ones. Danny Rolling said there was a maniac in town earlier today threatening to splash passersby with acid. Thankfully, police managed to neutralize him. I'm liking all the acid jokes. I really do. All right. So, yeah. Acid bath. So, John Haigh gets out of prison, and he thinks, oh, boy, I'm about to put my, acid bath dreams into, production. So, now, while he was, I guess, waiting to go back out on his own, he's staying with this family. How does this motherfucker, always find somebody to stay with? I don't know. But he's staying with this family called the Stephen family. And then he befriends one of their daughters, Barbara, who was actually 20 years younger than him, but became his girlfriend. This dude is a fucking fraudster and a potential serial killer, and yet he still gets a girlfriend. So, But like I said, he came across, what everybody said, because he's a sociopath, and a lot of sociopaths come across as, very, very charming. So a lot of times they can really, charm people if you're not really, paying too close of attention. Now, if you know them for a while, then you're like, ooh, this motherfucker's, evil. You know what I mean? But Maybe he was like, he seemed like a really charming person. That's what most people said. And he was able to talk people into some shit that nowadays I don't think he'd be able to talk people into. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think there was that. So 1940.
DJ Maniac shows up and says first. Get the fuck out of here, Maniac. Fuck out of here.
Well, you know, it's kind of the whole joke. Hour and 20 minutes in.
Yeah, hour and 20 minutes into the show.
That's
We're already
all right.
drunk. Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm not that.
Yeah, he's here in a New York minute, a New York hour.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, people come. They drop by when they can drop by. Everybody has lives, you know. They can't just like drop in and watch us yapping like all fucking day.
What you been up to, Maniac?
We're on like almost every goddamn day.
Yeah.
People probably get sick of looking at our yapping faces. All right. So 1944. John Haigh was in a car accident and then he got a head wound. Which, you know, good. Considering what happened to him later. Now, he said later that this was the event that kind of like... He had grown up, and I don't know how much of this is bullshit, because like I said, some of the stuff that he said after he got arrested, I'm sure is completely bullshit. But he said when he grew up, because of the religious, household that he grew up in, that he had like a bunch of like fucked up nightmares. But they'd gone away. He said that in 1944, after he got the head injury in this car accident, that he had like all the fucked up nightmares like started again. Now, this is an actual quote from him. This is what he said that he dreamed about. Like I said, I don't know if he made this up or not, but he said this was what the dream was. I saw before me Ooh, thank you, Ian England. Happy Wednesday.
Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for them flashbulbs. If y'all want to fucking give Jenny some flashbulbs, go ahead and send them now. I'll fucking sit here and record them all. I'll enter them into the system.
I forgot to mention when we were talking about, because we recorded the Misery review today, and I forgot to mention like how much I liked the cop and his wife in that. And he's like, I'll enter it in the system, and he writes it on a post-it and sticks it on the wall. And I was like, that's like my system, but except I usually like type it into some bullshit thing and like forget where I put it.
Yeah.
But so this was the dream that he had. He said, I saw before me a forest of crucifixes, which gradually turned into trees. At first, there appeared to be dew or rain dripping from the branches, but as I approached, I realized it was blood. Ooh, hardcore. The whole forest began to writhe, and the trees, dark and erect.
Dark and erect. They got a whole porn genres on that, dark and erect.
Dark and erect.
Yeah.
That sounds like a...
White girls looking for new experiences.
That definitely sounds like a porn title.
Yeah.
Dark and erect.
Yeah.
To ooze blood, a man went from each tree catching the blood. When the cup was full, he approached me. Drink, he said, but I was unable to move. I suspect, and like I said, we'll get into why later, I don't know if he made this up. Because later on, spoiler alert, like after he got caught, I think he was trying to go for an insanity defense, and it's like, yeah, I didn't just like kill those people for their money and dissolve them in acid. Also, I drank their blood because I'm crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like he was making shit up. So I don't know if he actually did. He may very well have had that dream. There's no way to prove it. So after the car accident, though, like I guess he recovered, and then he rents like this basement apartment, and he set up his workshop, which is where he's going to start his new career in frauding people and killing them.
Thank you very much, Camp Guy.
Thank you, Camp Guy.
Loving them
Tell me
flash
about
posts.
the T-shirts just when you hit the right spot in the podcast.
All right. What T-shirts?
Yeah, which ones?
I think he's...
Wait, you want us
he
to,
wants
like...
to know what T-shirts we have, I think.
All of them.
We're talking about them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he sets up this workshop. This is where I'm gonna kill people and dissolve them in acid. You know, that's his dream, and he's living it. So what ends up happening at this point? Very much by chance. He's at a pub in Kensington, and John Haigh sees his old employer, McSwan, the guy that he used to be a chauffeur for, the guy that owned like all the amusement parks and stuff. So he's like, "Hey, Mac, what's up?" Because that's what he called him. So they start hanging out again. And I guess that John Haigh had like known Mac's parents from back in the day, and like the parents were like thought he was great. Like I said, sociopath. So he's like, hey, my mom and dad have been asking about you. The mom and dad's name were Donald and Amy, by the way. So he's like, yeah, Donald and Amy have been asking about you. Why don't you come see them? So they all have this big, like, fucking reunion, man. And then, during this reunion, Donald and Amy happened to mention, oh, man, we just, like, invested in all this property. At which point, John Haigh goes, cha-ching, like, silently, I imagine. So basically, what John Haigh did, he starts hanging out with his former friend. Well, it's still his friend, at least as far as Mac knows. So they're hanging out together, being like, hey, bro, what's up? Like, and he just starts, like, hanging out with the parents and everything, all the while planning to kill them. So, you know, hanging out for several weeks. You never know, man. Never know. So he, on September 9th, 1944, he's like, okay, well, today is the day. I'm going to do the shit. So what he did was he got one of them to come there, like McSwan to come there. And he's like, hey, why don't you come to my, like, basement thing? I'm going to show you some shit or talk to you about some investments or some crap like that. He'd always, like, say some stuff like that to get people to come to his little place. So once they were in there, he would either shoot them, although the earlier ones, he usually would hit them with a pipe. So he would just, like, come up behind you, just like, hey, bro, what's up? I'm going to go get you a drink or something like that. Wham! And then he would, like, hit him with a pipe. And then he would slit the throat. Now, he says about McSwan, he said, oh, after I slit his throat, then I had, like, a mug right there, and I, like, had the blood pour out, and then I drank it. Like I said, I kind of think that was bullshit, but he said that later because he was trying to get an insanity defense. Maybe he did it. I don't know. But it seems like overkill, because, like I said, it seemed like most of the motive that he had for killing people was purely a financial motive. So I don't really think he got any kind of, like, sexual thing out of it. I think he was just eliminating people whose money he wanted. So he kills McSwan, and then he has this 40-gallon barrel. I think it was 40 imperial gallons, so it might have been 48 actual gallons. So then he puts McSwan's body in there and then fills it up with sulfuric acid. That's a lot of sulfuric acid, now that I'm thinking about it. 40 gallons of... Where the fuck do you get that? Like I said, I'm sure it was easier to get back then, but... I mean, the fact that nobody, like, was like, hey, bro, why are you buying, like, 40 gallons of sulfuric acid? I mean, that's got to say something. So, now the first time, see, he hadn't really thought this through, I feel like. Because he puts the body in the barrel, and then he pours all the sulfuric acid in there. Okay, fine. But, when the body's in there and the acid is in there, like, it starts smoking, like, the fumes come out, right? And he didn't have a mask or gloves or anything. The dude was not... I don't know what he thought was going to happen. I'm like, dude, it's acid. If you're using acid to dissolve a body, then probably you don't want to touch it or smell it or anything like that. I mean, you would think that would be pretty elemental, but he apparently didn't... That didn't occur to him, I guess. So yeah. So he pours it all in there. He's like, it starts steaming, and it's like, it gives off all this heat, which he wasn't expecting. And he didn't have a mask on or anything. So, like, holy shit. So he had to, like, run outside. Like I said, it would be funny if it wasn't, like, a person being dissolved in acid. So, you know. So he's like, okay. So after a while, he goes back in there and then covers the drum back up. And he's like, okay, I'm going to leave that motherfucker in there and, like, dissolve for a little while. This is so messed up. So he just left him in there, like, all night. Like he leaving a roast in a slow cooker. I don't know. It's just, like, fucked up. Now, he said that during that night, after this first murder, that he had, like, a whole bunch more, like, nightmares and stuff like that. But, you know, boo-hoo, whatever. Now, the next day, he comes back and checks on his handiwork. And what's left of McSwan... They said basically, he's like, basically it was just a bunch of cold liquid and some lumps. So all that was left in the barrel, he just poured it down a drain. And apparently he felt like super jazzed. He's like, oh my God, I just killed somebody and dissolved them in acid. That's awesome. Like, he kind of, like, had this really weird, he got, like, really, like, kind of pumped about it, which, like I said, that's kind of fucked up. So yeah, I don't know. I just find it very, very funny. Like, it's not funny because the dude got killed and like dissolved in acid, but I just thought it was like really funny that like he didn't prepare for what the acid would do. Like, he didn't have a mask or anything. I just thought that was like kind of funny. So yeah, so he dumps the guy. I think this, when I first read about this guy, I think this is what really got me, that like he dissolves the guy into like some lumpy sludge and then pours him down a drain. And I'm just like, man, that is fucked up. Like, that you can do that to a person, just like, whoop, down the drain you go. Yeah, there it was.
Okay, I can handle Camp Guy if you want to do it. He's got a Calico. He wants to get a couple more shirts.
Oh, okay.
You want to go? Okay.
What?
I'll show him what I got. All right. It's a quick commercial. These are the shirts that I have right now. And they can be on any kind of shirt. $20 super chat for small to large. Anything above large got to be $30 because the shirts cost more. I got a Tyrell Industry replicant shirt. Okay. Got one of those. Any size you want. Got a large Snake Plissken image. I got OCP Communications. The only choice. I got Omega Man. See if I can get that image. There it goes. Omega Man. They can be on muscle shirts or any other shirts. Carl Co. Studios. Although I think he said he has one of those. And then I got this one. This is one of my favorites. Canon Studios. You will never get these studios are out of business. But they're all handmade.
Damn.
They're all handmade.
Thank you, Camp Guy. I want Tyrell and Calico extra large crew neck. Already have the Bliskin. Okay.
Okay, write them down.
Yep.
So what is it?
I know. Tyrell and Calico.
Okay.
Extra large. All
Okay,
right.
thank
We
you very
got
much.
you, man.
Thank you for that
very
fucking
much.
generous one.
I know.
And
That's awesome.
I'll make you some special ones. I'll even put the 13 o'clock logo on the back.
All right. We wrote that down. Thank you very much. That's
I'm going to send you a gift
awesome.
with that too. All right.
Yeah, we can find all kinds of
Okay.
stuff right here. We can put it in. All right. Yeah. Samantha said, "Who would pour that down the drain? Crazy people. Crazy
Yeah.
people." But yeah. So he dissolved his friend and poured his friend down the drain. And then he goes to his friend's parents, Donald and Amy, and says, "Oh, your son was gonna get drafted into the war and ran away to avoid conscription. And he even went so far as to like send fake postcards from him, like to like, maintain the illusion that he was still alive." So basically, he's like, "Well, I have to maintain the illusion he's still alive because he was trying to get all his money, right? I mean, that was the reason that he killed him and shit." So he was kind of like working on that. Now, while like the next murder he committed, though, he's like, okay, well, now I actually need like some equipment for this stuff. I can't just like pour acid in there and like hope for the best. So he made like some pumps and like a face mask and shit like that. Like, you would think that he would have better planning, but no, he had to like fuck up first and then do it. Now, he also killed, they don't know, he wasn't convicted of this, but he did like say later on that while he had killed McSwan, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to kill the parents too, because they had a shit ton of money and he knew them. But before he did that, he said that he killed this other woman in Hammersmith. Now, they don't know who this woman is. They don't know if he just made that up, or if this was a woman that nobody missed or anything like that, or he was just doing his practice. That's why I say that, they know that he killed 6 people for sure, but they think that he might have killed more because he said, oh, I killed this person and that person, but he didn't sometimes know who their names were. So McSwan's parents, Donald and Amy, they disappeared on July 2nd, 1945. Now, he lured them to his little basement apartment workshop thing, and then hit them over the head with lead pipes. And then he killed both of them and said he drank their blood. I don't buy it, but okay. and then dissolved them in the acid barrels. After that, he goes to the McSwan's landlady and says, oh, they went to the U.S. And before they left, they said that you should forward all their mail to me because that's how that happens. That's not suspicious at all. And that included Donald McSwan's pension checks. So everyone was like, okay, sounds legit. Which, okay. This is the 1940s, but come on. It's super fishy. But so he starts getting all the mail, and then he starts forging the son's signature on, like, the power of attorney form so he can, like, take over their shit. He also forged a deed on a property that was owned by the mom, Amy McSwan, and kind of took it over, like, in a false name. So from this whole fraud, like this whole debacle that he pulled, he managed to make £2,000 back in those days money. Now today in American money, that's about $39,600. So not bad for dissolving someone in acid, but you know, like, because he sold the property later on. He sold a bunch of their other shit too that he got control of because he had all their mail forwarded, and made about £6,000, or in today's American money, about $119,000 from that whole situation. Now, he would also, even while he was killing people, he was still like having all these little side gigs too, like all this kind of stuff where, hey, I'm a patent officer, and he'd set up like little fake businesses all the time. And he said also that around this time too, that he killed a guy named Max. That was all that he said. He said his name was Max from Kensington, and apparently like took his money, but they never figured out who that was. Now, the thing about John Haigh though, and I kind of feel like this is true of a lot of these types of motherfuckers, is that the reason they get into fraud is because they want a shit ton of money without working for it. And the reason they want a shit ton of money is because they have really expensive taste. They want to like basically like, you know, blow it on cocaine and hookers. And that's, yeah. And well, gambling, I think in John Haigh's situation was kind of like the big thing. So he was like a big gambler. So he would get these massive sums of money from the people that he dissolved, and then he would spend it. Like, he would just go race. He's like, woohoo, payday. And then he would just go and, like, fucking gamble and, like, stay in, like, real expensive hotels, like, all that kind of stuff. So it wouldn't last very long. And then he's just kind of like, oh, shit, now I have to, like, dissolve somebody else in acid. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of like a whole, like, fucking situation that comes about.
Cab guy, you were very generous today. I'm gonna hook you up. I got some shit I'm gonna send you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, that was really, really awesome of you. Really
very
awesome.
Nice.
All right, so by the time that most of the McSwan's money was gone, I mean, do you know how long it would take me to, like, spend... How much did he get? Like, 150 grand? Holy shit, it would take me, like, forever to go through that kind of money. But yeah, but he went through it, like, almost immediately. So he's like, okay, well, we gotta find some more marks. So he picks out another couple, Dr. Archibald Henderson, who at the time was 52, and his wife Rose, who was 41. Now, at the time that he targeted them, they were apparently, like, selling their house, so they were kind of, like, on the market. So he kind of approached them either as a real estate agent or, like, he was trying to buy their house. Like, that's kind of how he got into their good graces. And also, then, he was just kind of, like, he found out some shit about them so that he could kind of approach it. It's like, oh, I'm into the same shit as you. So, you know what I mean? He was that kind of motherfucker. And so while he cultivated a friendship with them, he was able to get, like, a lot of information about the stuff that they owned, so he could, like, get it later on. So then he rents this other place, another storehouse, in Crawley. And so he moves all his stuff from the old workshop with the drain to another place that, spoiler alert, did not have a drain. So yeah. And he moves into this new place and immediately, like, orders a whole bunch of, like, 40-gallon drums and a whole shit ton of sulfuric acid. Nobody said boo. How do you do that? Who knows? But he did. He's like, hey, I need a bunch of barrels and sulfuric acid. What am I doing? Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing suspicious at all. So
I mean, it's used in metalworking, but that motherfucker's not machining anything.
That's what I mean.
Anything. Come on.
I kind of feel like it's one of those things. Well, that's kind of like why after a certain time period, like after motherfuckers, like for example, like start getting poisoned, now when you go and buy a specific kind of like poison or chemical, everybody's like, well, what do you want this for? You know what I mean? Like you have to sign off on it. So if somebody turns up dead later on, like we're not liable, you know? So I kind of feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe some oversight there. And I know there are legitimate uses for sulfuric acid and stuff, but come on. Barrels and all that kind of stuff. So February 12th, 1946, he drives the man, Dr. Henderson, to his little workshop there and shot him in the head. And he used the dude's own gun, which, you know, that's not cool. And then, like, so he leaves the body in there and he's like, now I'm going to go get the wife. So he goes to get the wife. He drives her to the storehouse. She didn't really want to go, it seemed like, but then she was just kind of like, okay. So they go in there. What he would usually do is be like, hey, kind of look at that thing over there. And then he would like shoot him in the back of the head. So at least they apparently didn't know what was happening. But I mean, that doesn't make it any better. I'm just saying. So he shot her from behind and then tied up, like kind of like trussed up the bodies, like her and her husband, and then just left them there overnight. Now, later he told police that he drank blood from them too. But again, I don't think I buy that. Now, this time, so he puts the bodies in the barrels with the sulfuric acid like he did before. However, this time it didn't really work out as completely as it had the last time because Dr. Henderson's foot, for whatever reason, was not dissolved. I don't know if it was just because the foot was left sticking out or if he had, like, metal in his foot. I don't really know. Or it was like shitty acid. I don't really know. But anyway, there was like a foot left. So but you know, it's like John Haigh was just kind of like, well, you know, mistakes gonna happen. You're just gonna have to like deal with it. So he basically, he was, like I said, he was so arrogant. Like he literally thought that a foot was not gonna raise any suspicions. And like I said, this new place that he rented didn't have a drain in the floor. So he dissolves both bodies, except for that foot, which was that persistent foot, which was still there. So that persistent foot.
Want some more ice?
Sure.
Okay.
So he says, well, I don't have a drain, so I'm just going to go out back in the garden where there was kind of like a little garbage pile thing. And I'm just going to dump the barrels in the corner of the garden, including the foot. Including the foot. This dude, like I said, he's not smart. He's not smart. And I think that he got to a point where he was just like, so because he'd gotten away with it a couple of times and nobody questioned him. There were no cops coming around, nothing like that. So he's just like, well, shit, man, I can do anything. I'm just going to dump this fucking foot like right in my fucking yard and no one's going to do anything. I kind of feel like that was where he was coming from. So, yeah. Now, at this point, like I said, because he's trying to get all their money, after he dissolves them in acid, he has to sort of like keep maintaining the illusion that they're still alive. So he has to like forge letters in their names and, you know, forge letters like back and forth to other people. It's like, it's at this point, like I said, if you're doing all this stuff, you might as well just get a job. I mean, this seems like a full-time endeavor. And all of the work that it entails and all of the worry that it entails, like I said, you might as well just get a fucking regular job, okay? Because at this point, you're just like fucking doing all this kind of stuff. So he ends up, from this particular escapade, he got, like, selling their properties and selling their stuff and everything like that. He got about 8,000 pounds in that, in, like, 1940s money, which is about $158,000 in American money today. Also, this is kind of fucked up. Remember the girlfriend, Barbara, that he had? He gave Barbara some of the ladies' clothes. Hey, I found these clothes. They might fit you.
Yeah, here's some free clothes.
I totally didn't dissolve this lady in acid. What are you talking about? Yeah. I mean, can you imagine how fucking cold-blooded you would have to be?
He's trying to get laid off of his murders.
That's what I mean. I mean, for some reason, it's like, it's bad enough, like, all the shit that he did, but, like, little shit like that, I don't know why. That just, like, kind of sticks in my craw. Like, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Hugo, if you ever need any shirts or something, just hit us up. Fucking, we can work it out. And look, I'm just doing the shirts because that's an easy product. If you're a regular customer, if you want me to make images on something else, like say, I don't know, a fucking backpack or something for your car or something, we can talk about it offline or online. I can put those images on anything as long as I have it.
And I will note too that I accidentally bought some screen printing ink that can be used on other things other than fabric,
Like paper and wood
and stuff. So if you want some other stuff printed, it's like I got to use it somehow,
right?
Because I mistakenly bought like not the stuff for fabric, like I got the other stuff. So I have like a whole big huge fucking $30 bottle of that stuff.
And if somebody wants custom images, just drop a suggestion, and in the comment section, whatever, we'll talk about it. I can put them on anything.
I still got to do a silver shamrock.
We got to do a silver shamrock.
Maybe I'll try to get to it this weekend, but I've been like super busy. Like
I wanted to do some more Weyland-Yutani stuff. I actually was thinking about something Predator 1. Like, what would Dutch's security companies? What would his company logo look like? Because they were mercenaries, they were an army, but he had to have some kind of a security company to do that mission. What would it look like? You know, just shit like that. I was thinking of something with Predator 1, something that's alternate universe. You know, something that's not violating copyright. Well, something like that would be an original design.
I kind of feel like there's a lot of that stuff going on because I saw somebody on a podcast the other day that was wearing like a what was it, like a Quint's Boat Rentals shirt? Like Quint's that was it was like kind of cool, and it looked like all distressed and everything.
Yeah, what would his shit look like? Just anything, you know.
Yeah.
If you guys want me to
so there's like a whole subgenre of like shirts like that.
So if you guys have any ideas and you want me to make it, we can talk about it.
Danny Rowling said it was probably amusing to him to write to the victim's family and friends, etc. I kind of feel like it was. I kind of feel like he got off on it because he thought he was getting away with something. Like, he's like, man, I'm killing people and, like, nobody suspects anything. So he's just, like, writing all these letters like, yeah, they're doing great. They're on vacation and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's like that kind of shit. Now, at this point, somebody, like, one of the family members starts to get a little bit suspicious. But John Haigh is able to come out and go, oh, you know what happened? Dr. Henderson actually, like, performed an illegal abortion on somebody. And so he was going to get in trouble. So both of them, like, took off to South Africa, like, to avoid prosecution. And apparently the family member was like, okay, sounds legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you know, by all accounts, he was actually, like, a smooth talker. And he did actually, like, convince people of stuff. And he seemed like a normal person. Like, he didn't seem crazy or sociopathic or anything like that, even though he clearly fucking was. So yeah, but I mean, he would even plan, I found this on one, like, article. It said that basically, a friend of his that he had gone to school with, like, a long time ago, he noticed in the obituaries that their mom had died, and he was just kind of like, maybe I can, like, go there and, like, exploit that situation. You know what I mean? He just seemed like he just wanted money, and he didn't really care about people at all. So that's what I mean when I say he was like a goal-oriented killer. You know what I mean? So he was absolutely going to do that, but then, like, you know, that person died too, and he didn't really get to it. So again, like, all the money that he made, like $158,000, almost $159,000 that he got from, like, the last murders, that didn't last long either. Because, like I said, he's blowing through the shit. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Gambling, expensive hotels, blah, blah, blah. But it's running out again. So he's like, okay, well, I need to, like, cultivate another victim at this point. So he meets his last victim at the same swanky hotel where he was staying at. This was Olive Durand Deacon, who was 69 years old. Now, she was wealthy because her husband, who had died, was a solicitor named John Durand Deacon. So, like I said, she lived in the same hotel. It's called the Onslow Court Hotel. So that's where they both lived. And it's kind of like a fancy place. But she was living in there, he was living there. And he's like, hey, old lady, what's up? Like, I heard you have money, something like that. And at this point, he's telling people he's an engineer. And I guess him and Olive got to talking, and she actually had a business idea for, I think, like, fake fingernails. Which, like I said, I'm like, wow, she was like ahead of her time because they were like making, So I don't know if anybody had those like in the 40s. I don't think so. But that was kind of
ahead of her time,
Yeah, that was like a business idea she had. I'm like, wow, that was like pretty brilliant because now like everybody has that shit. So, but of course she never got to do it because
that's handy
because she got fucking killed.
Put that shit on there and they do a porn scene and then they vanish.
What does porn have to do with it?
Porn has a lot of fake fingernails.
Well, I know, but a lot of people wear fake fingernails, not just porn stars. Maybe that's just where your brain goes.
Yeah, that's where you mostly see it.
I mean,
you in club night, I try to tear them fake fingernails up though, but you never like, I had too much to drink. See, that's how the shit goes.
Well, I mean, I have like shorter ones and I like those. Those are good for because honestly, if you wear those big long ones,
it's not practical.
It's really not practical. Like especially if you're going out to the club and it's like, if you have to go to
can't even put the seatbelt on.
Yeah, it's just kind of like that, and then if you have to go to the bathroom, it's like I can't get my clothes off. It's like they're snapping off, and I'm just like, what?
That's why I was saying. That's why I said porn. They're just sexual. They're just sexual. That's all. They look good on camera.
Although I do like I did buy some like from Amazon that are short. Yeah. And those are actually like a lot better. As long as you like glue them on, like you're not like worried about them constantly like snapping off all the time. Yeah. You can actually do things with them on. But the long ones, absolutely you can. Yeah.
They're wigs for your fingers.
They are.
I'm at the point where I just fucking say, fuck it, shave it all off, and fucking I'll put a wig on. Become Danzig.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just...
I'm just saying, like I said, if
nobody asked me to put a wig on today.
They
y'all
didn't.
Y'all are fucking slacking.
You wouldn't do it anyway. Well, that's the thing.
I've been fucking...
People ask you, and you won't do it, so everybody just probably said, well, we're not even going to ask you anymore. Why are you crying?
I've been slacking.
Why are you crying?
I've been slacking.
You've been getting all like cranky about it. You didn't look, dude. We even did a live stream about Jaws 4, like Jaws: The Revenge, and you didn't even put the Michael Caine wig on. I can't believe that shit. I can't believe it. You have.
I've been slacking.
You just people asked you to do it, and you were just like, "Fuck that! I'm not doing it. I'm not doing
it." I'm back in Danzig mode.
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit crooked, but
it's crooked and it's loose.
Well, that's what you need to like. There's like a little clip back there,
there's
right?
a clip back there, but I don't have time for that shit. I might change it.
Yeah, I
don't have time for that.
I don't usually put it on like we're on the show because it gives me a headache. Mm-hmm. But I'll put it on if I'm going out so it doesn't like slide off. But
I'm gonna wear this to the club one of these days. People would fucking trip out, wouldn't they?
They would probably think it was hilarious. Yeah.
They wouldn't recognize me.
Probably not. No. Well, that's what happened. Like the first few times I went out with this blue wig on, I think people, like a bunch of my friends, like just walked right by me.
They didn't recognize you.
And then, like every now and then, people like, "Oh, it's you." Yeah. I mean, it is dark in there, to be fair. So yeah. So she had an idea for fake fingernails, and John Haigh saying, "Hey, I'm an engineer. Maybe I can help you out with the prototype, right?" So she's like, okay, fair enough. Like, yeah, why don't you come to my like workshop office thing? It looked like a shithole, to be honest. It looked like a workshop. It didn't look like, yeah. So she goes down there and she's like looking at some shit and he shoots her in the back of the head. And this actually said like what gun it was, a 38 caliber Webley revolver, because I know you care about that kind of stuff.
What kind of was it?
38 caliber Webley revolver.
Yeah. Oh, British revolver. Breaks open. Yeah.
And this was a gun that he'd actually stolen from his former victim.
Yeah.
So, utilizing all the stuff that he took. And he used that to, like, shoot her. Then he took all her shit. She had, like, a really expensive fur coat. So took that. And took all of her jewelry and all that other kind of stuff. And then put her in the acid bath.
Yeah. Webleys were good. They were good. For you movie buffs, what's his name? Fucking Indiana Jones used the 45 Webley in one of those movies where he's shooting at, I think that was part 3, where he's shooting at the damn fighter plane that was coming at him. That was a 45 Webley. Yeah, just old classic British revolver. Gone now. Big, by today's standards, but just what it was what it was. They're asking you to put on a wig now, the curly wig. What curly wig are they talking about?
Wait, who are you talking about?
Somebody said, Jenny, put the curly wig on. She's not changing the wig. That's her. That wig is set up for tonight. Look how beautiful she looks. that pallid skin and that blue hair. She looks like an ice princess. Old honky ice princess.
I am an ice princess.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only curly wig I have... Well, no. The only actual curly wig I have is that red one that I wore when I was Amy from Fright Night.
Yeah.
Which I haven't... I don't... Or, you know... I guess if I had dressed up like Brave from that Pixar movie... That was a Pixar movie, right? Yeah. Then yeah, that would be that. But it's ironic because that curly... My hair is not curly, but that wig is actually very close to my actual hair color before I started dyeing it. Except now, like, my hair is probably gray because I'm old. But yeah. So he killed this old lady and dissolved her in acid again. Now, 2 days after that, a friend of hers reported her missing. Now, apparently, there was some kind of, like, suspicion about John Haigh, maybe because, you know, Olive had been seen with him, like, not too long before she disappeared. So the cops start looking into the motherfucker. And obviously, he has a criminal record. Because he had all those fraud convictions, right? So they're just like, well, that's interesting. We're going to look into this fucker. So they search his workshop. What do they find in there? They find... This dude's so fucking stupid. They find he had like an attaché case in there. In the attaché case, there was a dry cleaning receipt for the fur coat that he had stolen from Olive, who, you will remember, just... was dissolved in acid 2 days earlier. Also, there was some paperwork in there that referred to both the Hendersons, the couple that he killed, and the McSwans, three of whom he had killed, the whole family.
You're off screen. No.
No, I'm not.
You're on screen here. Okay.
Yeah, it's...
What's funny is that...
Well, that's just because the chat window
Oh, okay,
is
it's
there.
a chat window. Okay.
Yeah, it's always been like
I'm looking
that.
at you. You're
It's
good
always
over
been
here.
like that.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. It's I have to hold it over there so I can see the notes and that. The screen isn't that
That's
big.
not the true camera width. Okay.
No.
All right.
Like I said, there's some of it like underneath there. It's just I have to see the
I'm
chat.
Going, like, this shit looks fine.
I have to see the chat.
Drunk, getting confused.
I guess so.
Yeah. They're telling us to try other wigs on. They want a Michael Caine wig.
I have so many wigs in there, you guys. Yeah, like the curly, like I said, I have a red curly one, and I have a couple that are like wavy. I have like a dark blue wavy one, and I have, what's that other wavy one? I have a red wavy one.
Yeah.
But the wavy ones don't look as good. I think the straight ones look a little bit better. Although I haven't worn that red curly one in a long time. But yeah, so he has like a bunch of paperwork relating to like several people that he killed. So, because, as I mentioned, this workshop that he rented didn't have a drain like his old place did. So he was just dumping the people sludge into the back, like, garbage pile, like, in the backyard, essentially. And he thought that, like, no one was gonna fucking figure that out, I guess. I can't imagine. So, the cops start looking through this particular garbage area and find 28 pounds of human body fat. And also
28 pounds?
Also part of that foot. Remember I said that Dr. Henderson's foot didn't dissolve? Yeah, they found a foot. In the pile.
Hugo, I couldn't find the Michael Caine wig. She's got a shit ton in there. I knocked over a little thing of wigs. I had to put them up. You'll fix it later.
No yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Her fucking closet has gotten more and more complicated with stuff.
It's not complicated.
Okay. It's got
all the wigs that
organization.
All the wigs that I wear most of the time are just laying right there. Okay. The ones that I don't wear as often, I have them on their wig stands, like up on the hangers. But
they're asking for a Kukulkan drink shirt. I don't know, man.
I made one for the Zazzle store.
Yeah. Okay.
There is one on there.
There's one on Zazzle.
Because that has to be full color.
Yeah. The shirts that they're normally real popular are something having to do with movies and culture and that are kind of universal. And I'm going to put the 13 o'clock kind of spin on it, like it's an exclusive that we sell. That's what what I like to do. I really want to come up with a Predator 1 shirt.
Yeah, you just said that.
Yeah, I just got to figure it out. What would be the best way to do that?
Yeah.
I think it would be popular if we got it right.
Well, when I have time, I'll research it and figure
Canon and Carol Co. are going good because they have to do with studios that some of the best B movies our generation grew up with, and you all are appreciating them. I like that. Those are selling.
Yeah, so where was I? 28 pounds of body fat, a partial foot. Also found some gallstones. I think that's what I remembered more than anything because acid doesn't dissolve the gallstones. So they found a bunch of gallstones, and they found part of some dentures, which belonged to Olive, the last old lady that he killed. So he didn't do like a real thorough job, gonna say. Hey, I'm gonna dissolve these people in acid. Oh, but what's a foot or a gallstone here? I'm just gonna dump it in the backyard. It'll be fine in the people sludge. Nobody will ever know. So they bring this motherfucker in. There was actually like a great, I can't remember what the name of the show is, but there's like a great British crime show that has like it does like a lot of these old cases and does reenactments of them. And the reenactment they did of John Haigh was just, it was classic, where he's just like sitting there and he's all like super smug and everything like that. Like, well, you guys don't have a body, blah, blah, blah. It's like a foot. That's like pretty, you know what I mean? That's kind of suspicious. So he seemed to genuinely think because there wasn't like a body, then he couldn't be like convicted. Like he really did seem to genuinely think that. So they questioned him for a long time. The cops are basically like, yeah, okay. And then at one point he asked the cops, what are the chances of anybody being released from Broadmoor? Which we did a show about Broadmoor, did we not? Very, very famous, you know.
Sounds familiar.
It's an insane asylum, essentially.
Yeah.
It's where, like, the criminally insane, that's where they put the criminally insane. So he straight up asked the cops, what are the chances of anybody being released from Broadmoor? The inspector said, yeah, I'm not going to tell you, that kind of thing. And John Haigh is like, well, if I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me. It sounds too fantastic to believe. He then proceeds to confess everything. He says, I killed Olive, Duran, Deacon. I killed all the McSwans. I killed the Hendersons. I killed 3 other people that you motherfuckers don't even know about. And we don't know the other 3. They're not sure, but like they're pretty sure about like the other 6. And he thought, it seemed, he felt like comfortable confessing because he thought, well, there weren't any bodies. So even if he confessed, then they couldn't do anything to him. And I think the cops just thought it was like kind of funny, so they just like sort of just let him talk. Because they're like, okay, if he thinks that, we're just gonna like let him fucking think that. You know what I mean? Holy shit. So he just like fucking blabbed. Yeah, I shot this dude and I dissolved him in acid, and then he like had all kind of tips about, oh, the first time I did it, it was kind of fucked up. Like I didn't even have a mask or anything like that, so I had to figure it out for the next time. And the cops were just sitting there going, okay. And they're just like,
dumb motherfucker.
I know what I mean. He's so fucking stupid. But the cops were just probably like, yeah, go on.
Goes back to what I said before. If you have basic field dressing skills and butchery skills in a bathtub, you could avoid all this shit. But these motherfuckers are cowards and overthinking shit. They're fucking dumb. Dumb. It's not hard to deal with. Just fucking Google on YouTube, or just look on YouTube how to field dress a deer, how to clean a deer. There's no difference between that and Hammond. They just don't want to do the work, and they're thinking wrong. They're just thinking wrong. Dumb.
Yeah,
Dumb.
The thing about it, like I said, who would think that dissolving people in acid, and like it wasn't even like completely dissolved. Like I said, there were still gallstones and feet and dentures and stuff. And then he's just like, fuck it, I'll just like dump it in the backyard. It'll be fine. No one will suspect a thing.
Something like.
No one will suspect a thing.
Something tells me that
kills me.
That these are not hands-on people, and they're afraid to deal with dead bodies of animals or humans, which that goes into this is food industry skills. If you have anything to do with the food industry, you're going to be dealing with the bodies of animals. There's no difference between bodies and animals and humans. The only difference is psychological. It's just in your mind. It's the same thing. It's that same skill set. No special equipment required. A 3-inch curved skinning blade can take a fucking elk down into small, portable, clean little packaged parts that you could sell at a damn grocery store. A 3-inch blade can do that. I heard some of these dudes in the past saying, well, I went and I got the chainsaw. What? Chainsaw? What the fuck are you talking about? That shit's gonna splatter everywhere. You ever seen a chainsaw cut through a fucking log? It sends fucking wood fragments all over the fucking place with sawdust. It's gonna do the same thing to that meat. A fucking simple blade, 3-inch, curved, very sharp. That's all you need. It's just fucking ridiculous. You know.
Well, like I said,
these are dumbasses.
Everybody thinks that they found a hack.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's
what this is. A special way. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Nobody ever thought of this ever.
Yeah. Well,
and this is the best way to do it. Like I said, everybody loves a hack that nobody's ever thought of, and I kind of feel like that's the same situation here.
Yeah.
That's the same.
There's no special science to this. You get frustrated talking to these idiots.
Goddamn serial killers can't figure shit out.
Well, there's serial killers who are already freakazoids, and then some of them are just fucking criminals, and the common criminal's fucking dumb. Okay, and they're imagining an obstacle that is not there. Okay, there's nothing special about any of this. You know, processing a body. It's done every day in every fucking butcher shop, in every fucking kitchen. Sometimes we'd have a whole fucking tuna delivered. Internal organs, we're out of it, but that's the same as cleaning any old fish, like a trout. And it's just part of the food processing problem, and a human would apply right to that same skill set. Wouldn't matter.
Not to be weird, but it might be better to eat the human.
Depending on the circumstances. Of course.
I'm just saying. if you've already gone that far,
some guys have done it. I wouldn't do it unless my life depended on it. If you're in a starvation situation.
Well, I wouldn't either. I'm just saying hypothetically. I'm just saying if you've already gotten to the point where it's like, hey, I'm going to shoot a motherfucker and dissolve him in acid, it's like you might as well just cook him and eat him. Well, yeah. I think that would probably be better.
Okay, look, man, I don't want to teach a motherfucker anything.
As far as like eliminating evidence, I'm just saying.
I do not want to teach anybody anything. Stay with all animals for safety reasons. It doesn't matter if it's a human or any other animal. Stay away from internal organs in general. That's where the problem is. Regular meat, flesh is a lot safer. Cannibals can come down with shit like kuru and all kinds, but they're eating brains and internal organs, because in the cultures where cannibalism happens, they don't have an aversion to internal organs. Internal organs are for poor people. Let's be honest. Yeah, there are poor people in the South. There are poor people in England. They're eating kidney pie and all this other shit. If you're eating internal organs, you're poor. Stay away from that. In humans, it's worse. The dangers. Okay, eating internal organs. That's just a survival tip. Okay, that's not for practical knowledge. It's just if you're trapped, like say on top of a mountain with a bunch of dead bodies and you're starving, like it happened up in Argentina back in the 70s. If you're forced to eat people to survive, dead people to survive, stay away from the internal organs. Okay. Same thing with animals. Stay away from internal organs. It's too risky. Only eat that shit if you're fucking starving. And if you're forced to eat internal organs, the safest internal organ to eat is the heart. The rest of that shit's dangerous in general. Livers, kidneys, no. Stomachs, there's not much there. Lungs, terrible. Don't eat that. Nothing in the intestines. Don't fuck with that. There's too many possibility of parasites and all kinds of problems. Throw all that shit out unless you're fucking starving to death.
Rebecca said, I get this is off topic, but I need to ask as it's mid-morning here and I have to get going. Jenny, do you have books or have seen a documentary about the gang rape, torture, murder of Anita Kobe? I have not. She says, asking for a reason. I have not, but I have written it down, so I will look it up for later. Camp Guy said calf's liver with onions is good. Yeah, my grandma used to eat that all the time. I'm not a big liver fan.
Yeah.
I have eaten it, but it's not really
It has to be prepared rightly,
It's not
correctly.
my thing.
It's risky in the wild. Okay.
I don't mind it if it's mixed in with other things, because
Yeah.
you've made like gravy at Thanksgiving
Yeah.
that had liver in it,
Yeah, I
and
use
that was
it.
okay.
But those are domestic animals.
Yeah.
Okay, that have come out of the American food system in the wild, and that includes people in a cannibalism, bare bottom situation.
Don't eat brains
Don't
either.
eat that.
Don't
That's
eat
all-
brains either.
That's all dangerous. Yeah.
You're gonna get mad cow or kuru,
Kuru.
like somebody said earlier.
Too
Yeah,
much
John
risk.
Gora said. Yeah, you're gonna get
Too much risk.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, wild game. I've hunted lots of wild game, venison, fish, and everything. All the internal organs are thrown out. You don't know where that deer has been. And those are the highest risks. We didn't even eat deer heart, and deer heart would be safe, but there's just not much there. Now, if I was going to make some kind of gravy, I'd use that heart, but we were never making gravy. Choicest part on the fucking deer is the fillet, which goes along the spine, and the hindquarters. There's really not much in the shoulder or the front quarter. There's not much meat there. Everything, and even not much on the neck. It's just very thin pieces of tough meat. It was just all thrown away. You know, you don't get much out of a deer, even though it's a pretty big animal. It's just very lean, very tough. Very thin pieces of meat. They're not very thick. So you get two hindquarters and basically the deer version of filet mignon that runs along the back of the spine. The rest of there's just not much mass there once he's cleaned out. 10 pounds, 20 pounds of nothing really. Not counting bones. It's not really. Sinew, you know. Cartilage, or not cartilage, but it's mostly sinew. It's just like eating fucking pieces of fucking plastic, or you might as well chew on a damn bowstring or fucking the strings of a fucking Batman racket, you know. There's not much there.
Rebecca says, I will send the best something. Ooh, thank you. One of the most horrific crimes in all of Australian criminal history.
Okay.
Fucked up. Oh, okay. Ooh, I'm looking forward to that in like
Yeah.
a weird way. Xanada said, my Italian grandma used to make gravy out of the eyes and hearts of animals, usually turkey. I never ate it. They're probably smart.
Yeah.
Isabella said, any serving suggestions like for human? Or...
On a human, on your average human, the only thing that would be worth eating would be the
Your
lower
butt.
leg and the butt.
Yeah.
The rest of it, there wouldn't be much there on the average human.
I kind of feel like, yeah.
Maybe a calf. There's a few pounds there.
Other than that, yeah, no. I just
Not much.
kind of feel like...
The average person doesn't have much on their arms. They don't have much on the pectoral or the chest muscles. It's just... And the rest of those internal organs would be risky. Wouldn't eat that.
human butt roast.
Yeah. Well, they say hands were good. The people that survived some plane crash, the hands tasted like bacon. Because there was a lot of fat in them.
Don't tell people that.
Yeah. They were chewing on hands. They said it was like bacon.
My hand doesn't.
But they basically taste like pork.
Yeah, I've heard that.
The Vikings called human beings long pork. The Vikings were also cannibals. People don't realize that, but they called fallen enemies, you know, because they were on battlefields. They're like, well, don't waste that. And they'd pull up an enemy and they'd eat them, you know. And they called it long pork or long pig.
Well, I mean, as long as they're dead, you might.
They were
as
already
well.
dead. There was guys who killed in combat.
Meat's meat.
You don't want to, you know, they didn't want to waste a dead body sitting there.
practical.
They're just like, get that. We'll eat that.
We'll eat that dude's butt.
Yeah.
Santa just said Albert Fish ate the butt. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that's where all the meat is.
Well, yeah, I'm just gonna say, like, from a practical standpoint, if you ever have to eat a human, like, hopefully nobody's in a situation where you have to eat a human, but if you do, like, I kind of feel like the butt and the thigh are the only things you want to eat. So yeah, how did that happen? I don't really know how we get off on these fucking tangents, but I guess I don't wonder. I know how. But like I said, so the cops come in and they search the rubble pile. Like I said, they find 28 pounds of human fat, so you know. All the gallstones, I think they found 3 of them. They found the foot, part of the foot. A bunch of bone fragments, actually, so that didn't dissolve. And they found some dentures. And then they also found, like, some other stuff that wasn't, like, body-related. So they found, like, you know, part of a purse and, like, part of, like, a lipstick tube and shit like that. So, despite all this, despite all the evidence that they found, and like I said, even though this is the 40s and, like, forensic science isn't, like, the greatest and stuff, but obviously they're like, well, clearly people have died here. But for whatever reason, John Haigh still thinks, well, technically there's no body, so you guys can't do anything. So they said, like, when he came into court, he was just like totally, he was just like, yeah, what's up? You know what I mean? Like he thought he was going to get away with it. Like, I'm totally beating this rap because there's no body. Wait till they find out that it was kind of like that. Like I said, he kind of thought he knew more than everybody else. So, yeah. So he comes in, and I don't know if that was just because he legitimately thought that because there wasn't a whole body that he would get away with it, or if he was just that much of a sociopath that he didn't really give a shit if he went to jail or not. I don't know. So, and like I said, at this point, like when he goes to trial, he's already confessed to everything, like in great detail. So I don't really know like why he thought he was going to get away with it. But they said that he really did seem that he was going to get away with it. But what happened, though, and this is why he asked about Broadmoor, but the reason that he asked about Broadmoor was one of the reasons that they didn't let him get away with it, is because his defense attorney was like, okay, well, we're going for an insanity plea. So that was why he started saying the stuff. Like, after he asked the cops about, like, you know, what happens if you get an insanity defense, or can people get out of Broadmoor, and after that, he started, like, embellishing stuff. That's when he started, like, the whole drinking the blood thing. That's why I think he didn't really drink the blood from the victims, because I think he only added that detail on there to make him seem crazier, so that he would just get sent to Broadmoor, where he was hoping that he would get out of there at some point, like, instead of going to prison or going to the fucking gallows. So he also, like, talked about those weird dreams that he had, which, like I said, I don't know if he really had those or if he was just, like, making stuff up to make him sound crazier. I kind of suspect it's the latter. So basically, though, the prosecution had over 30 witnesses that, you know, could say that, yeah, he premeditated the shit. Now, to get an insanity defense is not an easy thing. Like, it's not as easy as people think, even back in the 40s. Basically, you had to have a thing where, is this person aware that what they're doing is bad? You know what I mean? And if you still know that what you're doing is bad and wrong and shit like that, then obviously you're not crazy, because you still have a moral compass. So as much as he's like, yeah, I drank these people's blood and, like, came up with all these weird dreams and stuff, people were able, like, all these witnesses and stuff like that, and all of the paper, you know, kind of the paper trail that he'd left and shit like that, they were very much able to say, well, he very meticulously planned all these crimes, like, he forged all these letters, like, he forged people's signatures, like, to get their money and stuff like that. So he did, it was very, very... there was a lot of forethought involved, and obviously that is not conducive to an insanity defense. So the prosecution brought in a whole bunch of, like, doctors and psychologists and all that kind of stuff, and all of them, like, talked to this motherfucker, and they're basically like, yeah, he's just, like, pretending that he drank blood because he wants to seem crazy so he can go to Broadmoor instead of going to prison or getting executed. They said he absolutely knew what he was doing. And all that stuff is probably just bullshit. Now, what they tried to come up with, they said they did think that he had mental health issues, obviously, but that he wasn't insane by the legal defense. Like, he still knew what he was doing was bad, and that he was very aware. And they said, well, you know, the very fact that he tried to cover up the stuff by dissolving the bodies would seem to say that he knew that it was wrong and that he would get in trouble if he got caught. One psychiatrist said that he had what they called a paranoid constitution, which is the same mental disease that Hitler had, actually. They thought, this is what the psychiatrist that examined him thought, they thought that he had developed paranoia, like this kind of like paranoid personality, because of the way that he was brought up, because of this weird, very isolated, like, religious kind of belief system that his parents raised him in, and that he was, again, like, very isolated, very lonely, and he was just kind of, like, had a thing where he couldn't really discern, like, maybe reality from fantasy. And once he got to a point, too, when he was a little bit older and figured out that his parents were, like, bullshitting and, like, making up a bunch of stuff, he got to a point where he thought that he could just, like, get away with anything too. So there was that also.
I wouldn't put much weight into old-fashioned psychology. All right, what he's talking about doesn't exist. I would go more for the newer stuff. And it's the same thing about old Mustache Man. If you actually look at the details, there wasn't really anything wrong with them per se, other than third stage syphilis had a lot to do with some of the shit Hitler did towards the end of his life. That had a lot to do with it. He had neurological problems, but it wasn't psychological in the way that this guy's thinking.
Well, I mean, and the thing about it too is that you can have mental issues, but that doesn't mean you're crazy or you're not competent or anything like that. Like insanity, I mean, that has a very specific legal definition. And it's very, very hard to meet it. You can have all kinds of like mental health issues, but that doesn't mean that you're allowed to like commit crimes willy-nilly and like you didn't know what you were doing was bad.
When it comes to Mustache Man, people that knew him in his early political career said that he was nothing, that the man at the end of his life was nothing like that. And what they described, syphilis. That's what happened to him.
Well, a lot of people thought
syphilis.
That probably. Like late stage syphilis will give you
late stage syphilis does a lot of shit. And a lot of things, one of the main things about late stage syphilis, it gives you a very robotic, lizard-like manners. It's like you're an artificial human. And another thing is that syphilis does to you, it's called syphilis in remission or late stage syphilis. Once you've decided on something, you cannot reverse your decision. Which that's Mustache Man right there. Once he committed forces to Operation Barbarossa and lost them in Russia, he could not retreat. He could not turn around. He couldn't come back from anything.
They also call that the sunk cost fallacy.
Right, yeah. He was one of those. But other than that, there was nothing unusual about that guy, and that's what a lot of people don't want to hear. I've been studying that dude off and on since I was a little kid. Why'd he do that? What was this dude really like? There was nothing special about him. He was an average dude, other than that syphilis and the situation that he was in.
And a lot of people had syphilis back then.
Yeah, a lot of people
had.
Not gonna lie. So, and people don't want to hear that because they want some explanation.
Well,
and that's not the way life is.
I think it's the same thing with serial killers. People are always like, they expect them to be monsters or they can't act like normal people, but some of them can.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary. Like, sometimes it's just like a normal-ass person.
Yeah, he was a normal-ass dude around a bunch of other normal dudes that were thinking a certain thing. It was like a culture. It was a mass fucking movement, and it became very cult-like over time, and it was groupthink, and they fucking painted themselves into a corner, and they were doing shit that a decade prior they would have never done. But there's an insanity to crowds, and that's what happened there. And if you were to ask them what was going on, they thought they were saving the world. They thought they were the good guys. They had just talked themselves into something that was unwinnable. No. Were they crazy? No. But people don't want to hear that. They want to hear some kind of explanation that frees them from the possibility of ever happening to them. Oh no, that could happen to you too.
Well, in a way, that's why I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff. I'm fascinated by seemingly normal people who go off on that kind of thing because it's like you have to be aware that could absolutely happen to anybody. I'm not saying that anybody could be a serial killer.
No, that's a different situation.
But I'm just saying that anybody could commit murder. Big time. Like, if the circumstances were correct.
When you have millions of people that seemingly agree on something, you're in a paradigm where you feel that you have to agree with it too. And that's what happened to them. Like the extreme peer pressure. And then you have a fucking political philosophy that transforms itself basically into a religion, And they just could not reverse any of their decisions. So Mustache Man wasn't alone. He was caught up in that same movement. And he was a perfect figurehead for it because of the syphilis that he had. there was no way he could reverse what he was doing and stop everyone else, or he would have lost popularity. It was just has to do with mass psychology. What do they call it? Mass formation. Mass psychosis formation, I think, is what the word that they use to describe it. And it could happen to anybody and any mass. It could happen on the right, the left, the religious, the secular, the atheist. It could happen to anybody. That's why humans are like schools of fish. You got to be careful. Don't follow the crowd all the time. The crowd could be headed right over a fucking cliff.
Danny Rowling said, "Was this killer executed, or did he just rot in a jail cell and die?" He was executed, which I was about to get to, but spoiler alert. So he goes to trial in 1949. Thousands and thousands of people show up to see this because, like I said, this is a big famous case. Now, at this point, John Haigh had blown all the money that he stole from the people that he dissolved in acid, so he didn't have any money to pay for his defense. So the News of the World newspaper said, "Hey, we'll pay for your defense if you give us an exclusive, like all the salacious details of what you did." So he said he would do that. There was also a thing too where, you know, the Daily Mirror, which is actually like still in, it's kind of like a rag, you know what I mean, like a tabloid. But they got in trouble because they actually referred to him as a murderer, like before the trial was over. Like instead of saying like alleged murderer, that's what you're supposed to say because technically he's not guilty. So they got like contempt of court for that and had to pay like a huge fee. I just thought that was interesting.
Jeffrey R. says, Tom is frustrated with the ineptitude of today's psychos. Yes, I am. But it is, a psycho's going to do what a psycho does. Those motherfuckers are dumb, half of them. So,
well, the thing about it is, like, if they weren't psychos, like, their thought processes would be a lot clearer, and maybe they wouldn't have, like, all these dumbass ideas.
It's just frustrating to see somebody who errs so much, you know what I mean? You're just like, what the fuck are you thinking?
But like I said, they're serial killers, so, like, don't help them. Let them be stupid, then they'll get caught. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't let them run around.
Right.
So, John Haigh, his arrogant ass, he comes into the trial, like, he pleads not guilty. Not guilty. You guys don't have a body.
Yeah.
We got a foot and 28 pounds of human fat, though, and teeth and stuff. Okay, that's kind of a body. So the prosecution comes in. Like I said, they had numerous witnesses that said that he had, obviously defrauded a bunch of people and, like, faked a bunch of letters and stuff like that. Looked super, super suspicious. So the defense, pretty much all they had was like, he's crazy, he drinks blood, all this other kind of shit. Like I said, the psychiatrist was like, yeah, he's not crazy, he's just like trying to fucking pull some shit. So, and, you know, like I said, the prosecution also pointed out, like, if he was crazy, he wouldn't have tried to, like, dissolve the bodies in acid and, like, cover up the crimes, clearly. So he obviously knew what he was doing was wrong. So, you know, I don't even know how long the trial lasted, but they were just kind of like, yeah. And then one of the cops came forward and said, yeah, he legit, like, asked me about Broadmoor and then started saying all the stuff about blood drinking. So it seemed like very calculated. So basically, the jury goes and they're just kind of like, well, you know, what do you guys, and they're just like, yeah, dude, hang the motherfucker. Come on. You know what I mean? He's not crazy. 15 minutes. It took the jury 15 minutes to come back with a guilty verdict. The judge says to John Haigh, do you have anything to say for yourself? And he just, like, went all arrogant. He said, nothing at all, he said. And then the judge says, well, we're going to hang your ass. That's, you know, I'm paraphrasing. That's not what he actually said. Now, so John Haigh, he actually gave his life story to the newspaper, like, that had paid for the trial. He wrote letters to his parents. I would love to know what his parents thought about this whole situation. Did they, like, blame themselves? Maybe, probably not. Probably not. Like, did they really think that they had contributed to how their son had turned out? I wonder. I don't know. But, yeah, he wrote to them. He wrote to his girlfriend. And his girlfriend was, like, really upset about it because she didn't realize, I guess, that he was a serial killer. And she asked him, I think, at one point, like, point blank, like, would you have killed me? And he's just like, no, of course not. But she was just kind of like, you kind of paused there, though. I kind of feel like maybe if I got in the way or if I won the lottery or something, probably you would. He probably would have. So, yeah. So basically, so he's going to the gallows. Now, he told his girlfriend that I don't know if this is suddenly, he believed in reincarnation, and he said, I'm going to come back and complete my mission. His mission being to kill people and dissolve them in acid and take all their money, evidently. So he thought that he was going to come back in his next life and do that shit. Okay, that didn't happen, I don't think. Madame Tussauds wax museum, which is actually cool if you've never been there. I've been there. They have, and obviously their kind of chamber of horrors is the best part. They said, hey, can we do a death mask after you get hanged? And he was just like, sure. You know what I mean? So yeah, so they did a death mask. So he got hanged. Yeah, 1949. Hanged at Wandsworth Prison. Madame Tussauds did a wax figure of him, and he even gave them, like in his will, he gave them like his actual clothes so they could put the actual clothes on the wax figure. So yeah. So I remember, I think I saw that actually. I went to Madame Tussauds back in 2000 and like in the 2000s, like the mid to late 2000s sometime. And I think they did have a but I don't really remember it. I don't remember that particular figure. I remember the one they had of Crippen. I remember that one. Like down in the Chamber of Horrors. I think they did have him there. But yeah, that was his actual clothes that he bequeathed to the museum. Which, okay. I kind of wonder, like, though, what was he thinking when he was actually, like, standing there? Did he think, man, I'm pretty stupid. I should have done things differently. I wonder, did he think that? I don't know. Because, what an idiot. Seriously, what an idiot. I don't know. John Gora said he aspired to become solvent by dissolving others.
Dang it.
That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good.
So I can't believe it. We made it through the show.
We did. Well, what do you mean? We always make it through the show. We always make it. Well, most of the time.
Yeah, can't make it.
Most of the time we do.
All right. So is there, you guys have any questions about the case or any questions about the show? If not, then we'll check off soon and I'll make us something to eat. You hungry?
Yeah, starving.
Okay.
But
What time is it? Oh, it's still early.
Yeah, it's only 8:30.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've only been on for 2.5 hours.
It was a good show,
man.
It's a good show.
Well, like I said, I'm glad that this was a case I've been wanting to do a long time, and two, it's only one dude, so it's not like super complicated.
Okay, so you want to have a little after party, or do you want to?
Yeah, we'll do a little after party.
Okay, you want to make another drink?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make Jenny another drink.
Yeah, we're gonna have it's after party time.
Okay.
So what does everybody think about this motherfucker? I mean, I don't know why this guy in particular, because here's the thing. I was a morbid kid, you guys. Like, right, I started reading scary stories. I started reading about serial killers and stuff like that, like, very young age. And it's like, I'm fine. I didn't, And for whatever reason, this guy really, like, stuck in my head. I think I was fascinated by, like, morbidly fascinated by the whole dissolving in acid thing. Because I told you before that even when I was a kid, I was really, really weirded out and also like simultaneously fascinated by dismemberment, particularly beheading. That was like, it really, like it scared me, but I was also like really, really fascinated by it. And I would think about it a lot. Like how long are you alive? Like after your head gets cut off, like, are you aware that your head gets cut off? And like I said, that scene in The Omen, you know what I mean? Like where David Warner's like head gets cut off by the pane of glass. I said, just like hypothetically, if that happened in real life, like would you actually like feel your fucking head and it'd be like super light and it'd be like flying through like that fascinated me, but also like fucked me up at the same time.
I had to add a little bit of OJ in there. It's great though.
Well, that's okay. I like OJ. Yeah, I like that better than the other stuff, because that other juice is, well, it's not even juice, but it's like it's
almost like Kool-Aid.
It's kind of like acidic. It's like really sour. It's like tart. But yeah, so I was always fascinated by that, and so by extension, I think that I was fascinated by not only like bodily dismemberment, but also like bodily, disillusion. So if somebody was like dissolving I was just like, man, that's fucked up. Like it's like weird to think about like this body that you live in, and then suddenly somebody puts you in a barrel, and then you're just like a bunch of sludge and a foot. You know what I mean? Or a bunch of sludge or like a gallstone. And like I was really weirded out by that. So I read about this guy like when I was probably, God, I must have been like only 10 or 11 or something like that. It was like a true crime book that I had. And this case in particular, like, really, really stuck in my head for whatever reason. I was just, like, fascinated by people being dissolved. Zach said, I mean, he just threw the foot in the garden. Like, that's what I mean. Like, what the fuck? How arrogant do you have to be? How much smarter than the police do you have to be? You come back into your workshop, and I'm just spitballing. I'm saying this is probably what happened. He comes back into the workshop, and he's like, oh shit, like that 1 foot wasn't all the way in the acid, or for whatever reason it didn't disintegrate all the way. Fuck it. It's fine. I'll just dump it out like with all the others. No one will notice a foot, surely. It's just, I don't know why, that just fucking kills me. Like, it's funny, but it's like not funny, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's the kind of shit that, like, that's the kind of fucked up sense of humor I have, I guess. I mean, shit. Xanada said, I have a female friend who also says she's fascinated by this case. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the whole bodily dissolution thing.
Well, it's funny. It's kind of samey to me.
Well, no, I mean, anything that has to do with, like, the human body as meat is fascinating to me.
Okay.
I'm not really sure why. Like, or for whatever reason, it just, like, sticks in my head. So anything to do with, like, dismemberment or, you know, dissolving or anything like that, I'm always just, like, really into that. But, and also, this also had the added thing of, like, which I brought up before, like, motherfuckers that I hate is just, like, dudes that do shit like this, but, like, think they're smarter than everybody. And it's like, well, obviously, I can just, like, kill all the people I want. And I can even, like, tell you that I killed the people. He's like, yeah, I killed that motherfucker, but you don't have a body, so you can't, like, put it in.
Can't prove it.
And they're just like, yeah, there's a foot, though.
Right.
In your backyard, so... and a whole bunch of human fat that came from somewhere, right? Yeah. So, yeah. So, I don't really know, like, what he thought. That's why I really wish, for a second, that I could get inside this dude's head while he was on the gallows, and where he's like, man, I done fucked up. Probably I should have gone about this in a smarter way. I don't know. But, yeah. So, we had another drink. We're having an after party.
Yeah, it's an after party.
It's only 8:30.
I'm thinking about what we're gonna cook. You know, I have all that.
Let's talk about food.
I have all that fucking Japanese fucking fake crab. I got 2 of them sealed down there. Want crab salad one of these days?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I like that. You got that at Sam's for me, right?
I got 2 of them at Sam's for you. The thing about that,
because you don't like it much.
No, I like it. I eat it.
But I like it. I like that fake crab. I don't know.
The only thing I don't like about that fake crab is that you can't heat it. It doesn't work on anything that's fucking cooked.
Although, well, okay.
The Chinese those Chinese restaurants try to pass it off as something cooked. It's not as good. It's best cold. That's when I had it. Yeah.
But it's okay. Like, a few times when we've been to Koi Wan,
yeah,
they have, like, they make it, like, on big sheet pans.
Yeah.
And it's the fake crab, and it's, like, other kind of fish, and, like, some cheese, and, like, some other kind of stuff. And that's pretty good.
What was it exactly? Maybe I can make that.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've had it. But they make it on, like, sheet pan. It's the crab.
What'd they call it?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe people in the comment section might know what she's talking about.
I know that it's like crab. There's something else in there. It's maybe like some kind of vegetable. Maybe it's celery. I can't really remember. But then there's like a layer of cheese like melted on top of it. It's like a sheet pan.
I thought it had cheese and crumble of some sort.
Oh, I don't know if it has crumble on it.
Does it? Cheese?
Like I said, it's been a while. Maybe.
I'm trying to imagine.
John Gora said, "How is it fake?" Well, it's only fake because it's not
fish.
Crab. It's still fish. It's not fish. Like it's fake. Like it's made of like fucking old phone books or something.
It's fake crab. It's fake crab. It's fish. It's not crab. It's fucking fish.
But it tastes crabby.
That was ground up in a centrifuge. Okay. And then pulled out of that centrifuge and cooked in a shape and flavored to make it be like a crab-like product. It's spelled with a K, not C. That's not crab. That's fish.
Close enough.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
The problem with it is that if you cook it, it falls apart. It turns into flaky stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on.
I actually like this. I actually like the sushi that's made with that. Because a while back, remember, you made like some sushi with those sticks and was
Right.
it avocado and something else?
Right.
I can't remember what else she put in there, but it was good.
I checked the history on crab with the K, and it was never designed. It was never engineered. It's from Japan. It is Japanese. It was never engineered to be heated. It was engineered to be to be served cold on sushi.
Yeah, I kind of thought
what it
that
was
was
for.
the whole reason for
Yeah.
it existing.
Yeah, it was never
that
even supposed to be hot.
It was for sushi rolls.
It was for sushi rolls.
and you've made
it is-
you've made sushi with it before,
Yeah.
which is delicious.
Yeah, it's great on sushi rolls.
It is. Yeah.
But there are some times where you're like, man, I wish I had a hot crab meal. You know, but you don't have crab on hand, or crab's real expensive. Crab can be real expensive even here in Florida.
You can buy it in the can. It's not too bad.
Yeah, if I can. Remember the time we had those crab legs at fucking Winn-Dixie?
Yeah, they were
How
on
good-
sale.
Man, they were fucking outstanding. And we went in there one time. We were all gothed out. We asked for some crab legs. They had them frozen. And the girl working said, look, I got a bunch of crab legs that need to be thrown out because they're too small. I'm going to give them to you. So we got like 2 pounds we paid for 2 pounds or 3 pounds of crab legs, and she gave us like 6 pounds. Remember the little
We made a crab boil.
God damn. That was the goth bonus. That girl working at I'm going to hook you guys up. These are going to be thrown out anyway. Just pull them off the ice.
Cute. And we were nice to her.
We were not, yeah.
Which, like I said, you actually get a lot by being like super nice to people that work in stores and stuff.
Yeah, if you get in with those...
If you be a dick, they're not going to give you nothing. They're going to spit in your food.
If you get in with those grocers, they'll hook you up. The ones that are fucking cutting stuff and serving stuff up. They're like, I got more of this. Hold on. This is going to go out anyway. And they'll give you more.
I've always gotten like a lot more stuff by being like super nice to people. Don't
Right.
like complain to people. They don't like. Don't be a Karen. Don't be a Karen. Yeah. Danny Rowling said, "Who is smarter, Dahmer or this guy?"
Dahmer.
Dahmer probably.
Dahmer.
Yeah. That's my first instinct. Dahmer wasn't too bright either, but he was smarter than this idiot.
Yeah.
Zach says, "Speaking of food, I'm a boredom eater, which is why I've been so fat lately. Got any ideas on how I could stop that?" Honestly, what I've had to do, because I'm kind of in the same boat, and I know this might not work for everybody, and it's hard for me too, but I chew gum. I chew gum.
Wait a minute, where are you
a
seeing
lot.
this?
Like right there, like Zach. Also, one thing that I do have, bought, I think I brought this up before. I bought this massive, like, 5-pound bag of, like, these, they're hard candies, but they're, like, coffee flavor. And I really, really like them. And they're sweet, but they're not too sweet. I think they're only 10, 15 calories each. And I sometimes, if I'm sitting working and I'm like, God damn, I'm so fucking hungry. And then I'm like, I'm just going to have one piece of coffee candy. And I'll pretend that that's food.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So I either do that or chew gum.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't really work because I still get cranky, but I don't know. It gets better, like, if you don't eat much for several days. Like, you get used to it. You know? I don't love it, but I've told you before, like, my fucking metabolism is molasses slow.
Yeah.
So I really have to kind of, like, I have to keep it under 1,200 calories a day or I will be 400 pounds.
Yeah, and you guys have to understand that Jenny is enhanced. She's not natural. Okay, by the book, she's slightly enhanced. She's on HRT, and she does do little maintenance cycles of a lot of it, mostly Winstrol. Only at 5 milligrams a day for about a month at a time, which that can keep a postmenopausal woman or a woman who's beyond the age of fucking 40 something can keep her metabolism rolling forward like a younger person. And this applies to men. I mean, I hit andropause, which is male menopause, at around, I don't know, late 40s. And I would never be built like this without HRT. And I do maintenance cycles also. As you get older, your body, your endocrine system just cannot produce the hormones to give the signals to run the cells the right way, to burn food and to burn fat and to keep your metabolism running forward. Aging is not normal. It's an error. Okay? You're falling apart. So you can compensate slightly. It costs money, and you have to know what you're doing. But once you get beyond a certain age, you're not going to lose weight. Unless you're on a fucking starvation.
The thing
diet.
about it is that, like, I'm doubly fucked because my metabolism was slow
Even
when I
she
was
young.
a kid.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? I'm one of those motherfuckers that's just like, I sniff a cupcake and gain a pound. You know what I mean? I'm one of those kind of people.
She's a short,
and I've been
Southern
like that.
girl.
And I've been like that since puberty. Like, I was skinny when I was a kid. But as soon as I hit puberty, 11, 12 years old, I started chubbing out.
Yeah.
And I didn't eat all that much. I didn't, like, you know, I ate like a Southern kid, but I didn't, like, eat as much as, like, some other people I see eating. And I still, like, just gained weight and gained weight. And so, like, I did, like, lose at one point, like, 80, 90, 100 pounds. But to do that, I had to eat 1,000 calories a day, which, like, a lot of people think it's, oh, that's not enough. And it's not. It's not very much food at all. But if I eat any more than that, I will gain weight.
Yeah. Southerners.
I've learned this over many years.
American Southerners, it doesn't even really matter if you're white or black. We survived famines. People that had fast metabolisms died. Okay? And this is recent history. So we're all kind of... A true Southerner is kind of short. I mean, I can go to these fucking bars around here and pick out people that's old guys that are old Southern blood and younger Southern blood. Okay, old Southern blood are all dudes under 5'8". They're little short dudes. They just are. They're just short because in the Civil War era, the taller people with faster metabolisms all starved to death. So you tend to be short. You tend to be real efficient. No matter what you eat, you'll survive. You might
it'll stay
it'll
there.
stick right. Yeah, right. Real
Stays right in my
fucking
ass.
efficient
That's
metabolisms.
Yeah. Which, like I said,
Right.
in the modern day, not so
Not good, but
not
back
so
in the
handy.
days,
If I was living during a famine, sure,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Right.
But I'm not, so.
right, and then we tend towards diabetes, which that's the same as black people. Black people too.
Yeah, my grandfather had diabetes.
Yep.
My dad is borderline diabetes.
Right.
My grandfather had diabetes. Yeah.
So we really got to watch sugar and carbohydrates
Yeah.
and how much you're eating, especially later on in life. But if you look at Southerners, white or black, when they're young, they're short, shapely, good looking. All right. By the time they're late 30s, they're short and fat. Unless you fucking
True that.
do things, especially after children, with the women.
Well, see, that was maybe one thing that saved me is I never had any kids.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about it, like I said, I was skinny when I was a kid. I hit puberty about 11 or 12, like right when I turned 12. And then I started chubbing out.
Yeah.
And then, though, when I was in my mid-20s, I met my now ex-husband, who was he was very thin, and he was an athlete. He was a runner and a soccer player. So I started doing like fitness shit like with him and started eating better and stuff like that. So I actually like lost a lot of weight like when I was in my 20s, 30s. Then like as time went on, like in my 30s, I started gaining weight again. And then it's just kind of like, then when I hit about like 37, 38, and me and my husband were getting divorced, I was like, okay, well, I got to get this fucking weight off again. So I went into what you call starvation mode.
Yeah.
I mean, I went 1,000 calories and like extreme, like a lot of exercise.
And I knew her at that time. She was chubby when I first saw her. She was cute and chubby. And then it seemed like I came to the club. I knew her and her husband. I came to the club and she had broken up with her husband around that time. And all of a sudden I turned around and she was like 100 pounds. She was like 100 pounds. And she looked fucking 20 years younger. You look like a fucking 20-year-old girl. She looked fucking young.
I mean, the thinnest I ever got to was 118.
Got pictures of it. Yeah, I guess it was about 120.
It was 118.
Yeah,
that was the thinnest I got.
Around that time.
And at that point, I kind of felt like I was into it, but I was just kind of like a lot of people were like, you get a little bit too skinny.
She was losing weight while she was eating. Because once the ball
Once it
starts
started,
rolling,
it took a while to get it to kick off. I was exercising too, like a demon.
Yeah.
So
I was feeding her to try to put a little bit more muscle on her.
He kept saying, "You're too skinny. You're too skinny," and he kept and I think after we moved in together, I gained 30 pounds.
Yeah, I was cooking
because of your food.
You looked better though. You look better at about around 140 pounds.
My ideal weight is 135.
Yeah.
That's my idea. I have no idea what I weigh now, but my ideal weight is 135. That's why I feel like, because when I went down to 118, people started telling me, you look kind of fucked up. Like, you look kind of ill.
You didn't look fucked up. It's just...
People started thinking
you didn't have any shape.
Yeah, people started thinking I looked
You didn't look
sick.
that healthy.
Like some people said I looked sick.
Right.
And also, I was starting to have health problems. Like, I started having heart palpitations, and I started, like, passing out. And
but the palpitations came from the weight loss. That wasn't...
That's what I'm saying.
That's all it was.
That's what I'm saying.
Your heart was used to pumping blood through a much heavier body.
So that's another thing. Like, I lost a lot of weight in... It was 5 months, right?
Yeah.
It was about 5 months. I think I lost about 90 pounds.
Y'all know that I have a background in all this shit. I look at people just like domestic animals and the horses and fucking livestock that I worked with and shit. You would look best around 150 pounds muscular. That's with a good muscle composition and fat on there to give it some shape, which is, you're not really that far from that, but you know what I mean? Thinking, me, I should weigh about 100, I should weigh 195 to 200 pounds, but I should be about 15, between 10 and 15% body fat. So I'm a few years away from that at the rate that I'm going. There's no way I could have ever achieved these numbers without HRT and androgenic assistance, because when you get beyond andropause or menopause, if you're a woman, you just do not produce the hormones required to hold a body together in that shape, because the hormones are what's making what's making the your metabolism work right, and all even at the cellular level, to keep that shape. It has to do with things running well, and as you get older, things don't run well. Just like losing your teeth. When your teeth fall out, you put in false teeth. When your hormones fall out, just inject the hormones. It'll grow back. That's all it is. It's simple science. Simple science of biology. The signals have to be sent to the cells to get all that shit done. It is not unhealthy. That's a lie. It's healthy. They got dudes that are doing what I'm doing at 73 years old. They look just like me. At 73. You would never know that dude was 73. But he's doing things within certain parameters. You can't overdo things.
Zach says, part of my big problem with exercise is I have flat feet, and there ain't much I can do about that. I have flat feet also. This is why my preferred exercise is bike. Because I did walking, running, stuff like that when I was younger, and it fucked up my feet. And it fucked up my knees. But bike is a lot better. So I don't know if that would work for you, but I have the same problems too. I also have like super, super flat feet.
Now I will chime in. Bike is very good aerobics. Problem with aerobics is that aerobics is not concentrated. Weight training. It doesn't even have to be very heavy. Just weight training. Hour for hour, pound for pound is far more efficient than aerobics. You should have aerobics. That's always great. Aerobics does do things. That she's had results from aerobics. But when you're talking about the reward for the amount of time that was given, she could have done that in a fraction of the time with very small weight training. Weight training is better, but you should have some aerobics. And this is very general. Not everybody is exactly the same. Not all not all metabolisms are the same. And there's a big difference between people who are natural and people who are enhanced. And Jenny and I are enhanced. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you people. I'm 53. Jenny's what? You're all coming up on 50, right?
I'll be 50 next month.
Most people our age don't look like us. Okay. We go to the club, and girls that we knew as girls, like 20, okay, are saying, you look a lot older now, and they're looking at us, and they're saying, boy, you guys just don't age. It's not all natural. Hormone replacement helps. Genetics was part of it, though, too. Jenny's mom still looks young, and she's in her 70s. You can tell that she's older, but she still kind of looks young. But it's because where the fat is.
Well, and
on her
honestly,
face and her face.
she got carded well into her 50s.
Yeah. And my mother's side of the family was fucking immortal. All right. My grandparents on her side died recently. They lived well into their 90s, mid 90s. All right. On my dad's side, they were very.
Well, my mom's mom is still alive. She's
right.
in her 90s.
Right. So there's really no reason that what I'm doing now, as long as civilization holds together and I can get what I need in terms of hormones and testosterone and shit like that, I should live beyond 100. I probably lived to about 110. And I shouldn't look all that old, really. My granddad on my mother's side, when he died at like 95, he didn't look 95. He looked like he was 65, 70 maybe. He didn't look old. You know, he didn't look like a fucking crypt keeper or anything. Like a normal person. But genes is part of it, but hormones are really big.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Some people, I knew some people that looked old when they were in their 30s.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get old, like you reach that looking old plateau, and then you just look like that for the next several decades.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know.
Danny Rose says, what do you do if your anus falls out and becomes a pink sock? Then what do I do, Tom? Go down and get
just stuff it back in there.
Yeah, go down and get you a fucking big-ass fucking dildo. Something like called Moby Dick. Or
just
fucking, or
poke it back in.
just put
it's
that
fine.
And lube that shit up and push that bitch right back in.
It's fine. It's fine. It happens. It happens.
Yeah. The fucking sock.
It's alarming.
Yeah.
I get it, but it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never happened to me, hopefully. I don't really want it to happen, but I understand that it happens.
Yeah.
Danny Rowling also said, asking us about the movie Night of the Comet. Would you ever review it? I actually did want to review it because I actually quite like that movie. Have you ever seen Night of the Comet?
No.
It's like a post-apocalyptic Valley Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to see that again.
Yeah.
That's they're fucking around in the mall and they're like...
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a fun
David
one.
June said Patrick Stewart looked old, young, and didn't age until like last 10 years. Yeah.
I kind of there's some motherfuckers
Some
that like
dudes are
look
just-
young
Right,
and then old, but then there's like some dudes that like look old when they're like 22.
Yeah.
But they look like that for like 40 years.
Yeah. Patrick Stewart looked good. He looked old, but he looked good for a long, long time. When I was in high school...
He looked exactly the same.
Yeah, even when I was in high school, when Dune came out, he looked old, but he looked good. As fucking... What was his name? Gurney? Even in the old Dune. And he was good on the old Star Trek. I heard that his new program fucking sucks, but hold on to the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm always kind of like interested about those actors that looked like they were 40, like from the time they were 19 or 20. And I understand like people looked older back then. I can't remember what channel it was, but I watched this great video the other day on YouTube about, because this is something I'd always wondered about too. He's like, did people actually look older back in the old days? Because when I was a kid, I used to be fascinated by my parents' yearbooks because they still had them like on the bookshelf. So I would go in there and like look at them because I'd be like, oh, look at my mom. She was like, my mom was adorable. Well, like when she was in high school, and she looked young, like, and my dad kind of looked young. But I noticed even when I was a kid that all of these, people that were in this yearbook, which was 1972, that's when they graduated, and that was also the year that I was born. So all of these people, like 80% of them looked like they were about 35 years old, at least. And I don't know. And I was always kind of like, was that okay, was that just because people aged quicker back then, or was it because the haircuts, or I couldn't like really figure it out. So this guy like on YouTube did a video, like a whole video about that, because apparently that's a thing, like people wondering about like, hey, what the fuck, like everybody back in the day. Here's an example. If you guys are into Mystery Science Theater, they did a short called, I think it was called Is This Love or something. It was like, or no, it was Are You Ready for Marriage? That was it. And these two women that were in it were supposed to be in college, and they were supposed to be the same age. One of the girls, okay, I'll allow it. She looked like she was probably in her early 20s. Other woman looked like she looked older than me, and I'm almost 50. And I'm like, I'm not buying that as a college student. So I was curious, and I looked up that actress. Like, how old was she actually? Like, when she was in that short? 37. She was 37. And I was just kind of like, man, that, not to be mean, but that is a rough 37. I mean, she looked way older than I look right now. And so that's always something that I always kind of wondered about. Like, people seem like they looked older back then. And I think it's partially because I think a lot of it's because, one, you know, yeah, the haircuts and the styles and stuff like that. That probably, like, aged some people. And he made the point, too, that he's like, well, people have a perception of, like, clothing that people wear nowadays. It's, like, old people clothing. But that's what they wore when they were young. And they're still wearing it now, so we still perceive it as old people clothing. Yeah. He's like, but also, so that might be 50% of it. He's like, but the other 50% is that people are not exercising or eating the way they eat now, or they're not like aware of like all the, you know, they're not smoking or drinking or stuff like that, like people used to back then.
That's what Danny's saying. He's saying alcohol and cigarettes.
Right.
Look, cigarettes were much worse than alcohol.
Right.
Much worse. I smoked for fucking, oh man, close to 20 years, and I quit. All right. I started vaping, which helped me quit, and then I quit vaping. Cigarettes fucks you up worse, and alcohol's not that bad for you. Just as long as you keep it sane.
I mean,
you have to keep it sane. As long as you're not,
moderation.
As long as you're not drinking to oblivion every fucking night. But, you know, in moderation, it's not that bad for you. Nowhere near as bad as cigarettes. Cigarettes will fuck you up.
Well, and you have to think, too, it's not just like the choices people were making. They were probably like eating, you know, not that great and smoking and stuff, but environmental factors, like there was a lot worse pollution, there was like all of that kind of stuff.
They were eating
that
stuff out of cans that fucking had lead in it. There was lead in the water.
That's what I mean. So it probably
lead
didn't
in
help.
the paint, a lot of asbestos. There's a lot of problems.
Probably didn't help. But yeah, I mean, it absolutely did. I mean, the fact that this woman that was in this short that was supposed to be a college student, and I was looking at her going, that bitch looked like she's 55 years old. And she's like, she was 37. I'm like, but, I mean, for back then, I guess, yeah, that's about what 37 looked like. But I'm like, she looks way older than me now, and I'm almost 50.
Yeah. They lived harder back then.
I guess.
Also, there's something about the photographic technology of the time, even in black and white, it made people look a little bit harder. There's something about because it's reflected light on an image. It's only, hold on. It's only two colors. It's not a very prismatic image. And there's a lot of contrast in it. So it made an image that was kind of hard, not very soft. So people looked even harder in black and white photos than they were. But like I said before, the movie Prey, when I looked at those people that were Native American dressed up as old-fashioned Indians, all right, they looked just like regular modern people in Indian costumes. And there's something to be said for that. Carl Benjamin talked about it. That lifestyle made you a lot tougher than an average upper middle class person from California. You know what I mean? They were living outside. They were hunting for food. There was caloric restrictions, a lot of dietetic limitations. I mean, they couldn't really get large amounts of citrus fruit. It was a fucking mostly what we would call today a keto diet. They were eating a lot of fucking meat. because that's what was there. And they would have looked different. They wouldn't have looked like little fucking little college kids in drama school. They wouldn't have looked like that.
Yeah, but I mean, what are you going to do? They're actors.
Well, you could have put them through a little bit of a training program, let them lose a little bit of weight, fucking make them hunt for their own food out in the fucking wilderness before filming for about a month or so. It would have hardened them up pretty quick, actually. Because the Army did that kind of stuff for us when we were becoming infantry. You train people to survive, and it changes you, you know. And that would have helped a bit with the film. And that's why I was said earlier in another program that Predator 1 was so authentic feeling. It's because it was that script was written by infantry guys, ex-infantry guys who had fantasized about that situation. And pretty much everybody in that movie was ex-military. With the exception of probably Carl Weathers. I think Carl Weathers was an ex-ball player, which is real close. But Arnie, a lot of people forget, Arnie was in the Austrian army. He was a tanker, which is combat arms. So he knew exactly. That's why they looked so good with those guns and so natural the way they handled things, because that's what their old jobs were when they were young. You know, they weren't pretending to be soldiers. They were soldiers. They were ex-soldiers. So that's one. Even Paco was fucking the guy who played Paco. He was fucking ex-military, Vietnam veterans and stuff. Shane was in it. He was the dude with the glasses. He was ex-Vietnam. I'm not sure Sonny was ex-military. He might have been. You guys would know. I think he probably was. And then, you know, Blaine was, you know, Jesse the Body. He was ex-Navy SEAL. I think he was reserve, but still, he went through a lot of that shit. So they were very natural with these weapons and that lifestyle. They didn't have to act that part. They just went back into their job mode, you know. And I think that kind of came across. They were able to focus on shit like legendary epic tales about dudes trying to get even and trying to atone for their sins, and you know, you know, that's what fucking Dylan was all about. Fucking, no, I really am a soldier. I'm a soldier from the dark side, but we're still on the same team, and I'm gonna get these motherfuckers because they killed my other team. And everybody had their own little backstories, and it all just, that film is a masterpiece, definitely. And it's much better than Predator 2, even though it's acceptable movie. But you can just tell the writing and the acting. You know, even though I accept Predator 2, it's okay. It's good.
Santa said all the preservatives in the food are preserving our good looks. Maybe. David June said, I remember the old days of Tom vaping on the audiopods.
Yeah.
And Danny Rolling said, yeah, and people complaining about his vape pen. Yeah, a lot of people
fuck
did.
them motherfuckers.
Camp Guy says, both my best friends in high school smoked cigarettes heavily. One had a heart attack and died, insulin-dependent diabetic.
Yeah.
One has had 2 heart attacks, stent and quadruple bypass, and a stroke.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
good.
the thing about it, you smoked a lot longer than I did. I actually didn't start smoking until I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
And not gonna lie, every now and then, like, especially if I'm kind of drunk or I'm out at the club, like, if somebody offers me a cigarette, yeah, why not? But other than that, I never really, like, think about it.
I started smoking at 15.
Yeah, you started much younger than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't start till I was in my 30s, like I said.
I started smoking at about 15 and stopped at about 42. Right, around 42, 43. I says, man, I gotta quit this shit.
Which is funny because prior to you discovering vaping, which actually got you to stop smoking.
Yeah.
I think a year before you discovered that, you were like, I don't want to stop smoking. I like smoking.
I was like a heroin addict.
Yeah, I like smoking.
I liked it. I still like it. But, not anymore. I'd take a hit off a damn vape, and I fucking love it, and cough my ass off. I said, that was good, though. You know, but no, I don't need any of that. I just walked away from it. I feel good. Hopefully I'll fucking, hopefully I dodge the fucking cancer bullet. We'll see. Time will tell. I had a pretty tough constitution, and I wasn't smoking super heavily my whole life. So I think that might help. We'll see.
Although when I met you, you smoked a lot.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that kind of got me into smoking more. Because I was like, I had already started smoking by that point.
Yeah.
But hanging out with you, you were always smoking. So I was just kind of like, yeah, give me one of those things.
It came and went over the years, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it eventually settled down to about a pack a day, you know? But when it was heavy, it might have been a pack and a half to 2 packs a day. I would smoke 2 packs a day as a kid. I could smoke a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
They were cheaper then, though. And when you're young, you could shrug it off.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can get away with it for a long time.
Yeah.
But after a while, it really starts to catch up with
I had
you.
my lungs x-rayed and everything. There's nothing there, so I guess I'm good. We'll see. I don't know if it did any genetic damage. We'll know over time.
I must not give a shit about smoking anymore because I do kind of feel like I started smoking a lot when I was going through a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of like, it was very comforting. But I don't know, I've been going through a lot of stress lately because of like, you know, work and money and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't really thought about it. And matter of fact, I haven't really thought about smoking until somebody just brought it up just now. Until we just brought it up.
Yes, I call that Predator 1 because to say Predator, you also got Predators and the Predator. So I'm making sure everybody knows I'm calling it Predator 1.
Well, I'm pretty sure
Making
everybody
sure
knows.
everybody
I mean, those are 2 completely different
Yeah, and
titles.
Xanadu says I was smoking those herbal cigarettes. I only smoked a few of those herbal cigarettes while we were on the show. I smoked less than a pack of those.
I got those at one point to see if they were any better. They're okay, but it's not really the same.
I probably smoked 10 or 15 of those. That's probably
Every now and then, like I said, if I'm this hasn't happened for probably like a year or more, but like every now and then, like when I was out at the club, like I'd be super drunk and like one of our friends that still smokes, like Angel or somebody like that, would be like, "Hey, you want a cigarette?" Or somebody would have a clove or something. I'd be like, "Yeah, okay," but you know, and I would enjoy it, but I didn't think about it otherwise, and I still don't think about it.
I got drunk over at Mannequins one time and went next door and bought one of those packs of fucking CBD cigarettes. They were fucking horrible, though. I would smoke them, but fucking that shit fucking sucks. Never went back to them.
That's the thing. Like the herbal ones, like they're okay if you really kind of need that, but they don't. It's not really the same. It's not the same. They taste kind of weird, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, every now and then, like a clove is nice, but it's all kind of like part of the atmosphere. When I'm at home, even if I'm stressed out, I don't really like think about it. I don't really think about it.
Well, it's almost about time for me to go down there and cook us something to eat.
What you gonna make?
I don't know.
You don't know? I don't know. Well, I don't know. What's down there? What's down there that
Well, I got
needs
some
to be...
pork tenderloin that was already cooked up. I can make some pork sandwiches. I got some. I can make a pork taco.
I mean, sandwich is
for
fine.
Okay.
Or taco is fine.
Or taco is fine. I can do either one.
Or
What else?
we got any burgers?
Yeah, I can do burgers. You want a hamburger?
Well, I mean, are they?
I got some of those frozen
Are they
patties.
thawed?
No, but they don't have to be. I got their Angus beef fucking hamburger patties. I can fucking cook those.
I don't know. Burger kind of sounds
Okay,
good.
I'll make a hamburger.
That kinda
Okay.
sounds-
Yeah, I got buns and everything.
Xanadu said spam.
Spam. I got a shit ton of spam. That's just stashed around here for a fucking emergency.
Tom will eat spam.
In case the world collapses.
We were
and
kind
shit.
of laughing
Got spam.
about. We forgot to mention this on the Misery Show.
That's right. They talk about spam on Misery.
On the Misery Show, because we just recorded the review for it today.
Yeah.
Her secret to good meatloaf was grinding up spam and like putting in the meatloaf.
Into the hamburger. And make it
Into the hamburger.
And I was like, that's a good idea.
And
It's like, what the fuck?
And it's like gross, but you know, I'm sure it'd probably be all right. It'd
Probably really good. Because
I'm not a big fan of spam, but it was like mixed in with like other stuff in a meatloaf. Then it's probably good.
Because
it's very salty.
spam is nothing more than pork shoulder. It's a good cut of meat. It's been salted. The low sodium would be even better. If you were to kind of grind that up and mix that with beef, like a hamburger, it'd be good. It'd be like making sausage. All right?
Yeah, as long as you didn't oversalt like the rest of the
you don't
meat.
salt. Yeah,
You
have
gotta
no salt
like
there.
compensate.
Right, and you mix in a bunch of egg with it, and breadcrumbs, and some Worcestershire sauce, and some ketchup in there, and you make a nice meatloaf with it with some fucking minced onion or a fucking diced onion in there. No, that'd be great. Especially if there's like diced pickle in it. And then bake it like that. Yeah, that Spam would.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm back in 1990. I get that they were like, yeah, she's kind of like low class and
she's
like
goofing on Spam,
and she's goofing on it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I'm kind of like, that'd probably be all right.
Yeah,
though. That'd probably be all right.
Yeah, because it would season that meat. You know what I mean?
And like I said, you'd have to compensate by under seasoning the rest of the meat because Spam is very, very salty. But
it's salty. But if you'd want to do like a 4-to-1 ratio.
That's what I'm saying.
Like a 4-to-1 ratio.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I'm gonna say
it would still taste like beef, but it would be more like a beef sausage.
I told you one of the good tips that I've learned, like because for some reason I'm like really fascinated by these ladies that do these channels that are like, we're gonna like cook it a whole entire gourmet meal like from Dollar Tree or something like that. So I'm really into that. One of the things they do that's actually a really good idea. For cheapness and also for, just being like, cheap with seasoning and stuff like that. They're like, you go to Dollar Tree or wherever, Dollar General, and instead of getting, because, beef is expensive, chicken's kind of expensive, they're like, get those little chubs of sausage. That shit's already seasoned. Yeah. In case you don't have any season in your house. Yeah. And it's like you can make that and like mix it in with other stuff, and you don't really have to add any seasoning because there's already seasoning in there. Yeah. And they're a lot like cheaper than buying like regular meat. So a lot of them will buy those little chubs of sausage that are already seasoned and put them into recipes.
For a while, Goya was selling these little 4-packs of chorizo in a fucking plastic vacuum-packed bag. They were good. Of Spanish/Mexican sausage. They were red. And it just tastes like any other sausage, really. It's not spicy. And it was great because they were kind of almost like an MRE packaging for meat. And man, that shit is so good. I haven't seen it in a long time, though. And it was cheap when they first showed it. It was like an introductory price. A pack of 4 of those sausages, it was probably like $2.50. It's probably $5 now. But that'd be great in white rice with beans and stuff. Just dice it up and put it in there. It'd be fucking delicious.
Well, now, I don't know about nowadays, but Dollar Tree, apparently, you can get these little chubs of, about that big, of the spiced sausage for $1 or $1.25. Yeah. So they're like, well, that's already like meat and it's already seasoned. Yeah. So you buy that for $1 or $1.25 and you can mix it in a spaghetti sauce, or you can like mix instead of like buying expensive beef and like adding, spices and stuff like that. They're like, it's way, way cheaper.
What I got at Dollar Store was these little packets of this big of Kraft cheese sauce in a metallic bag, and I was like, man, that's like the cheese whiz spread from the army they used to give us. They were only like $1 each, so I got all 4 of them. I bought them out. That was all they had, and I was like, man, this is gonna go in my rucksack for my bug out bag. You could spread fucking this cheese sauce on anything. It was about the same size and everything. It was Kraft cheese sauce,
cheese product,
cheese sauce. It's not cheese.
Well, no. That's why they call it like cheese product.
But it's good for you.
It's a cheese.
If you look at
it's whey protein.
It's whey protein.
Sure.
It's equal to a meat, and it's low calorie, high protein, pretty low in fat actually, and with a good flavor. It'll go with anything. It's good for you. And they did a whole program on that show. Somebody recommended the history of foods. That shit was great. That shit's over 100 years old, and
that was such a good show.
Yeah,
I think it was
Kraft.
It might have been Oracle that recommended.
Kraft came up with what they called American cheese. American quotation. It's not cheese.
With bunny rabbit ears.
Kraft was trying to figure out how to make cheese last in your home before refrigeration, and he experimented, realized that cheese will never last in your home without refrigeration. So he came up with a cheese-like product, which is just fucking whey protein, flavored as cheese. Yeah. And it's not cheese. Not under the definition of cheese. But it's a cheese-like product. And a whole fucking slab of that fucking Velveeta cheese. You could buy it cheap. And it could stay outside without refrigeration, just in a damn shelf in your fucking house for a month without it going bad. At least a month.
I would still argue that the best application of Velveeta is that dip that everybody
Dip.
made. That you mixed. It was
And an
Velveeta
ingredient.
and Rotel
Yeah.
and ground beef if you were feeling fancy.
Great in an omelet. I give it to her in omelets all the time. It's fucking great hot.
Although
Yeah, it's
I'm
good.
not super into, like, if I'm going to eat an omelet,
Yeah.
I would rather it just be eggs and mushrooms
So you
and
don't even
vegetables
put the
and
cheese
stuff
in
like
it?
that.
You don't even put cheese
Well,
in it?
yeah, I told you before, I don't really like that gloppy cheese in there.
I'm just trying to give you some protein in it.
I don't really like
I'm just
that.
trying to give you some protein.
Eggs got protein. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I'm not
because
going to die.
More protein.
Seriously, I'm not going
A
to die.
slice of that Kraft or Velveeta type
Seriously,
cheese.
I'm not going to die.
A
Can I
sli-
please just...
Shh.
Can I
Listen,
please
shh.
just eat food that I like without worrying about... I'm not going to... Don't you shush me.
I'm trying to tell them a slice of that Velveeta cheese, equal in size to say like a slice of fucking chicken, is equal to a slice of chicken per volume. More or
Right,
less.
but that's
Pretty
great.
good.
That's
Pretty
great. But like I said, my whole thing is
Good. She just wants eggs.
I don't get to eat that much food.
Yeah.
So the food that I have, I would like to enjoy it.
But there's not much calories in it.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying I would like to enjoy my food. So I don't
Yeah.
really want stuff that's just in there because like,
See,
oh,
Xander
here's some
said
extra.
spam recipe sounded good. Yeah, it is. That would be good. You got
That's not like
that.
yeah, spam like mixed
Yeah.
into meatloaf.
If you gotta know what to do.
That could work.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
could work. I don't really like spam by itself. Like I said, it's usually
Yeah.
too salty. Even the low sodium is like
Yeah.
a little salty for me.
Yeah.
I'm not really real into it.
Yeah.
But if you mixed it in with meatloaf, it'd probably be all right.
Yeah, yeah, Xanada. There was what that wasn't YouTube. What was it? That was
No, we watched that. It was a whole series.
yeah. That series was on what?
What channel was that on? Well, we watched it on. It was on Hulu.
Might have been on Hulu. It was
I
called
think we watched it on Hulu.
History of American Food, something like that. And it goes all the way back to the 1800s of where all this stuff came from. Most of American food had to do with serving large amounts of people over a very large, vast fucking country in an era before refrigeration. Fucking tough. And then they talked about how difficult refrigeration and freezing is. It had to do with bird's eye.
Yeah, they did a whole show about bird's eye.
And bird's eye.
I mean, frozen food. That was like a big deal.
You
They
would
had
think
no-
that it's easy to freeze food. No, it isn't.
Well, nowadays.
Yeah, it is not easy to freeze food.
Back then,
If
not so much.
If you were to freeze some food with the methods that they had, it destroyed it every time you froze it. When it thawed out, it was just fucking muck. It has to be frozen quickly. It has to be a flash frozen. And then, once it's frozen, you could ship it everywhere if you keep it frozen. And when it thaws, it's edible.
Well, that's why that was such a fascinating
that's
show
the thing.
because I kind of feel like maybe younger people nowadays like take it for granted
They take all that shit for
because
granted.
you know the
Right.
technology's been around for so long. Like
Right.
now, like obviously we're gonna freeze it and everything's fine.
Yeah.
But back then they didn't have that luxury, so they
No.
had to like come up with like some shit to like work around it.
The person responsible for frozen food, as you know it, was a woman, and she was a billionaire. She inherited a fucking empire, and she invested in Bird's Eye's frozen food idea.
Yeah, she thought that was like the best idea ever,
what
and
was her
she's
name?
like, I can't remember
Fuck.
now, but she's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy out your company.
Yeah, and I'm gonna help this fucking dream come true.
Because she like
Right.
thought, hey, this is like the future,
Right,
she
and people
was
wouldn't buy
right.
freezers, so what she did was is she had freezers constructed in all these stores across America, ready for this frozen food to arrive. Okay. People didn't even have freezers in the house. They would just buy it frozen, take it home, put it in the ice box, and maybe like a day or so later or that night,
Then they
cook
make
it.
Yeah.
Cook. That's how they did it. And then later on, the refrigerator appeared, and it had a freezer in it. But that took time. That took
I mean, we have
10
it so
years.
easy nowadays.
yeah, you have it right.
Like nowadays, not only do we have refrigerators, freezer, all that stuff, but honestly, you can go to like a myriad of websites,
Right.
and they will deliver food to your house that's already portioned. All you got to do is like fucking put it in the
Yeah.
shit in the air fryer, and it's
Right.
done.
Right.
I mean, so easy.
Yeah, telecommunications was a dream that could have never been around during that time. They didn't have telecommunications as you knew it, like being able to place up an order on your tablet or on your phone and have something delivered to your house. That could have never
Like I
happened.
said, you could have entire like fucking groceries, and like I said, there's a whole I mean, you can go to like places like Butcher Box or like Green Chef or like places like that will just like bring you already portioned like ingredients and all the recipe cards and everything like that. Like, hey, here's 5, 7, a whole month worth of dinners.
Right. Here's another thing y'all bitches take it for granted: being able to pay for something online by the touch of a fucking button. When I was a little kid, they didn't. They didn't have ATM cards, and a credit card. Only rich people had that. And then that was some shit they had to fucking.
I was gonna say back in. I remember when I was a kid. You
There's paperwork involved with the credit card. Yeah.
We sound like old people.
Yeah.
We are old people.
We are old people.
But I do remember that. I mean, I was a kid when they had the whole credit card ka-chonk, like with the carbon. Yeah. But I still remember that though.
Right. And online banking back in when I was a kid was you had an ATM card, you had to go to the bank and go on the outside and withdraw all the cash. And then you're still it's still cash. But it's just fucking funny. You couldn't take your ATM card and pay for what you bought at Denny's. That didn't work. You had to go to the fucking bank and get cash
and
out.
Get cash out.
Yeah. It was a different
Which was
system.
a big pain. Camp
yeah.
Guy said my grandfather used to send telegrams with Morse code in the 1930s.
Yeah.
He was a clerk in the locals. Yeah, and that's what you don't like, even in people that are still alive, like in their living memory.
Yeah.
There was shit like that going on.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it must be like to have grown up in the 20s and 30s and like be dealing with shit now.
Well, we got Grampers online. I think he's a ham radio operator. Fucking I turn on my ham radios at certain times, fucking listening through a repeater, and I'll hear Morse code coming through the repeater, and I go, man, I know that's some old motherfucker, fat old motherfucking nerd out there fucking doing Morse codes, and he's just saying good night, people. See you tomorrow.
Let's see if anybody knows what that says.
Good night, people. And it's just funny how they're still fucking sending Morse code. The reason why you use Morse code in the modern era over radio is that the Morse code doesn't require much energy, and with a small amount of transmission power, you can reach the other side of the damn planet with Morse code. Morse code's the shit. But it's totally obsolete.
If people understand it, then, But
Totally.
how many people understand it still now?
It's hobbyist shit, okay? But the thing is, as a guy who fucking wants to cover his own ass, it is good to know about ham and Morse code, because if there was ever something like a solar flare that would fucking wipe, or an EMP strike, all the fucking internet and cell phones will all be gone, but it'll go right back to 1800s technology, which is fucking radio and Morse code.
And then all the nerds would be like, vindicated.
See, told you. The bitches are making money sending messages.
You guys made fun of me for knowing Morse code, but who's laughing now?
Who's laughing now, bitches? Morse is back. Yeah. They can do it just by ear. Somebody else says something back, and they're probably cussing at each other. Because if you listen to the audio transmissions, the same ham guys are talking about, the bitches are talking about the weather and talking about radios. But it's still good to know. For local communications, if I'm down there fucking mowing, I can give Jenny one of my fucking GMRS or fucking hams or whatever. Man, come bring me something to drink. And it's just, what I mean?
I'm mowing the lawn. I need some water.
Yeah.
Or some booze.
But I had two little GMRS radios which don't require a ham license. The little bitty short antennas, and I wanted to see how far they transmit. I gave Jenny one with a little 4-inch antenna, and the other one was a 2-inch fucking antenna. It was all coiled up. It was an expensive little antenna. And I walked all the way down the block. It was probably about a quarter of a mile, 1/3 of a mile, and I could hear her clearly. And that's good little thing for only $20, $20-something per radio.
Yeah, not bad. They got good shit nowadays. Like I said, I don't want to go back to the old days. They had bad shit.
They didn't have anything. Yeah, they were. In case you guys want to know, they were Baofeng UV9 Gs is what they were, and I got the UV9R also. Good little radios. You get them about $30 each, depending on what it is.
All right, so let's eat.
Yeah, let's eat.
We've been going for 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
and we covered the case. I'm amazed that I'm still awake. I guess the alcohol helped.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go make us something to eat. Go
I
ahead and
told
shut
you,
down.
5:30, Pookie woke me up, running up and down the halls like a crazy person. So, all right. So we're going to wrap it up. So come back Friday night for our Sidetracks show. That should be fun. Actually, tomorrow night, I think we're going to go to Riff Tracks Live. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit if it's good. So yeah, thank you everybody for dropping by this evening. Thank you for your super chats. Very generous this evening, which we always appreciate. And we will see you guys again on Friday evening for Sidetracks. And good night.